What? What's going on? Yun Feng yelled as he desperately covered his ears. They had clearly seen how powerful Ling Chen was during the demon beast disaster. However, even though he could easily kill demon emperors, he shouldn't be powerful to the point that he could kill millions of players with a roar. This was something that only gods and legends could do. What's more, the dark fog around him, his red eyes, and his aura made them feel that this person was different from the Ling Tian they knew. He gave them a sense of fear and an unapproachable feeling. Ling Tian! Ling Tian! Can you hear me? Yun Feng picked up his communication device and roared into it, but he received no response. The Shura slowly descended from the air, and a baleful, berserk, and oppressive aura swept towards everyone around him, causing their bodies to feel a chill. The Shura's baleful aura was simply too intense, and it was to the point that it almost took form. Everyone couldn't help but wonder just what sort of experiences one had to go through to release such a monstrous, baleful aura. Within this baleful aura, there was also a sense of ruthlessness and killing intent. The Shura opened his eyes, a dense blood-red color within them. These were the eyes of extermination that Ling Chen had used to kill the modified instructor Hell. Before, Ling Chen could only release these eyes of extermination in the most hopeless situations, but now that he had transformed into a true Shura, his eyes of extermination had been fully released. His blood-red eyes looked ahead, seeing the sea of people that extended as far as the eye could see. Some of the people were just a few steps away from the Shura, while others were kilometers away. However, those who the Shura looked at, no matter how far away they were, clearly saw a pair of blood-red eyes. Even though they were quite far away, they seemed too close. Thump, 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 thump. The world seemed to fall completely silent to the point that no one could hear anything except their hearts violently beating. Slowly, their gaze became bloody and hazy, and they opened their mouths, but they could not make a single sound. As their hearts rapidly thumped and spasmed, they felt a sense of rupturing from their hearts. In an instant, a scene that was as terrifying as hell. No, a scene thousands of times more terrifying as hell appeared as blood started to cover the ground. Bang, 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 bang. Sounds of explosions chaotically mixed together, but they were not the sound of items exploding or explosions of power. Hundreds of thousands, or even millions, of bodies, under the Shura's gaze, violently trembled and exploded. The instant those players lost consciousness, they saw their mangled bodies, which had become bloodied and mushed, and their pulverized hearts, as well as their blood spraying everywhere. Countless terrified screams sounded out, sounding like the howls of demons. However, these cries did not come from the players whose bodies had been destroyed by the eyes of extermination, because their bodies had instantly exploded. These cries came from those who had not been killed by the eyes of extermination. They stared as the people near them exploded into fragmented body parts and blood, the hellish scene making them feel as if their minds were going to explode from terror. Even those who were usually quite brave started to scream and howl, their faces becoming incredibly pale. Countless players collapsed to the ground in fear, scrambling backwards as they tried to get away from the bloody hell. Before coming to fight, everyone was prepared to die. However, they were only prepared to lose levels and equipment because in this game world, they could not feel pain, see blood and gore, or die a true death. They had never thought that they would encounter such a gory hell in the game world. Actual conflict in the real world was very rare in these times, so not many people had encountered blood or gore before. Even if the scene was 1,000th of what it was, most people still would not be able to accept it. Normally, after dying, players would not be able to clearly see how they had died. However, even while their bodies were exploding, the players personally saw a scene that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. Sometimes, death was not very scary. However, Seeing their own bodies being blown into bits was truly terrifying. What was even more terrifying was that they still had not truly died. That scene would forever remain in their hearts, giving them nightmares forever. Countless body parts and massive amounts of blood flew into the air and covered the ground, turning into a hell of gore, terror, and screams. Not a single person had a complete corpse remaining, nor were they able to even tremble or cry out before they died. Some of the weaker-hearted players immediately fainted. Under the single gaze from the Shura, the battle immediately stopped because everyone had fallen into a deep terror, and they had no mind to fight anymore. Yun Feng's face became incredibly pale, as if he had been horribly sick. In just a few breaths, he had madly vomited 3 times. He was not a cowardly person, but at this moment, his head was hanging low, not daring to see the hellish scene in front of him. Was this done by Ling Chen? What sort of ability was that? Xiao Qiufeng, who had never known fear, said with a violently trembling voice. After this hell, an even more terrifying hell appeared, because the Shura once again acted. The first time, he killed millions of people with a roar, and then he opened his eyes of extermination. This time was the first time he had properly attacked. He raised the lunar scourge divine spear, which was covered with a dark fog, and roared as he swept it forwards. Boom! Every corner of the forgotten continent felt a massive quake. Everyone's hearing was once again drowned out, and their vision became incredibly dark. It was not because more dark clouds had appeared, but because the 50 kilometers of ground in front of the Shura had been completely lifted up, sending millions of players flying up thousands of meters into the air. In an instant, the heavens and earth seemed to be flipped, and the ground sank down by tens of meters. The sky became filled with dirt and screaming players. However, their screams only lasted for a short while before their bodies were completely annihilated by the berserk power. Whoosh! The dirt rained down back to the ground, but none of the millions of players fell back down, because there were only tiny fragments of flesh. Let alone whole corpses, there was not even a whole finger. When the dirt landed back on the ground, it was no longer a grayish yellow, but a shocking dark red color, and it was filled with countless fragments of bodies and equipment. Above the ground, countless large and small black holes twisted from the remnants of the Shura's power. Everyone felt completely suffocated. Yun Feng and Xiao Qiufeng's eyes widened, unable to even breathe properly. They simultaneously pinched themselves. It hurt greatly, but they still felt that they were in a dream. Just then, when the Shura had attacked, it was only a casual, single-handed attack. An area of 50 kilometers had been destroyed, and more than 80% of the invaders had been utterly annihilated. That was nearly 23 million players. What's more, it wasn't just the invading players, but nearly 2 million Chinese players had been caught within that attack as well. Demon! 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 Tens of millions of people had been completely obliterated in just an instant. The remainder of the invading players had their wits completely shocked out of them, and nearly half of them wet their pants. The players who had relatively stronger minds screamed as they scrambled away into the distance. As they ran, they felt as if their hearts were going to leap out of their chests. This was a nightmare. It was definitely a nightmare. That person was definitely a demon. In front of the Shura was a black hole that was tens of meters in diameter, and looked like a demon's mouth that was twisting and turning. To the current Shura, tearing open spatial cracks and creating spatial black holes was incredibly simple. Looking at the blood-red ground in front of him, an excited look shone in the Shura's eyes. He held the lunar scourge divine spear as he walked forwards into that massive black hole. SSS. The instant he entered the black hole, it instantly disappeared. No one knew where he had been sent. Thump. Yun Feng heavily knelt onto the ground. After the Shura left, the massive feeling of suppression had disappeared, and Yun Feng gulped down a few breaths, his entire body drenched in cold sweat. After bitterly battling for many hours, they had not been able to beat back the invading forces, but in the few seconds that Ling Chen had arrived for, he had roared, stared, and attacked once, completely destroying their army. However, Yunfeng did not feel a trace of joy or excitement, and he was only filled with extreme shock and fear. Was that really Ling Chen? Was that really him? How could he be so terrifying, and this feeling, it felt like it wasn't him. Ding! While Yunfeng was shocked, his communication device sounded out. It was someone calling from the real world. Yunfeng shakily answered it, and after listening for a while, his hands suddenly trembled, and his already pale face became even paler. What? What did you say? What happened? Xiao Qiufeng was given a big fright by his reaction. Impossible. It can't be true. Yunfeng fell onto his bottom, his eyes completely dim and hollow as if he had lost his soul. They said the Bamboo Sea Wonderland was destroyed, and everyone inside has died without any traces remaining. What? By now, many police cars and media crews had gathered around the destroyed Bamboo Sea Wonderland. When the first rescue team arrived at the center of the destruction, Ling Chen's body, which had been kneeling within the ruins, strangely and slowly disappeared. SSS. A spatial black hole appeared above a certain place on Earth. From the black hole, a person wearing silver armor and a black mask walked out, and his body was wrapped in a dark fog. Shura. After walking into a black hole in the mystic moon world, he had been sent to Earth. In his hand was the lunar scourge divine spear that he could only summon in the mystic moon world, and he was wearing the lunar scourge divine armor and evil god's mask. On his wrist, the lunar scourge shined with a faint black light. This was a bustling business district, and people and cars were everywhere, making it look like a lively place. When the Shura detected the countless living beings and the atmosphere of the city, boundless killing intent erupted from his body. Destroy everything. Destroy this world that brings only lies, pain, and despair. As long as I destroy everything, I won't have to experience lies, pain, and despair anymore. Boom! As the Shura landed from the sky, the solid granite ground cracked under his feet. When he appeared, he instantly became the focus of the people around him. What's up with this person? Did he just fall from the sky? Is this some sort of special performance? Wah! He looks so cool. I want to take a closer look. Why does my body suddenly feel so cold? He looks quite familiar. Isn't that Ling Chen? Why did that despicable Ling Chen appear in Japan? What the hell? When the Shura landed, 2 security guards nearby immediately came over and said with a stern expression, Oi! Who are you? I don't care if you're a person invited by a company to perform. Dropping down like that was very dangerous, you know? If you're not careful, you could have her dash. Chi. A dark spatial crack appeared as the lunar scourge divine spear slashed through the air. As an ear-piercing tearing sound sounded out, the lunar scourge divine spear did not touch anyone, but the 2 security guards' bodies suddenly became bits of diced-up flesh and blood. Only their heads were fine, and there were terrified looks in their eyes as they fell to the ground, rolling some distance. Ah! Countless screams filled the air. This sudden, bloody scene caused the people nearby to completely panic. Their fear of death and gore caused them to madly run away, sending the entire street into complete chaos. Countless alarm bells rang out from all around them, causing everyone to madly rush about. However, how could these humans escape the Shura's massacre? The Shura lowered the lunar scourge divine spear, pointing it at the ground with a calm expression. Boom! Just like in the Forgotten Continent, the sky suddenly turned dark as the surrounding 10 or so kilometers was lifted up. Countless buildings, cars, and people and pets were sent flying hundreds of meters high in the air, before being turned into tiny fragments by the berserk power. Whoosh! All of the screens disappeared, and not a single body could be seen in the air. Everything had turned into fragments and fine powder, and it all rained down like a bloody rain. All of the buildings, people, and prosperity had disappeared, replaced by a bloodied ruin, burying countless beings. Police sirens wailed from the distance, and the regions beside the destroyed parts of the city descended into total chaos. Looking at the bloody ground, the Shura remained just as impassive as if he was looking at some dust, and he walked on slowly with heavy footsteps. China. Impossible. This can't be true. How come a single person can't be found? That's right. Li Xiaoshui. What about the Li family's big miss? Contact her immediately. What is she? Impossible. Go and look for them. They must have hidden somewhere. It's impossible that you can't find them. Make sure you find them even if you have to dig under the ground. The past few minutes had been hell for Yunfeng. His face was completely pale, and his eyes were completely bloodshot. The news from Suhang City had sent his heart spiraling down into an icy abyss, and he had a terrifying feeling in his heart. However, he repeatedly reassured himself that it definitely wasn't true. After ending the call, he fell to the ground, his hands clutching his head. His phone once again rang, and Yunfeng came back to his senses and looked at the screen. He immediately picked it up, roaring in a trembling voice. Old Xiao, do you have any news on your side? You found them, right? Right. Look at the news, Chao Chiu-Feng's bitter voice said out from the other end. Yunfeng paused in surprise before leaping over to his TV and turning it on. Japan's Dainichi City has suffered the worst terrorist attack in history. In just a few minutes, half of Dainichi City was turned into ruins, and the one who caused this terrorist attack was a person wearing silver armor. This attack was like the descent of a demon, and this is completely true. The entirety of Japan has fallen into terror, and the Japanese army has moved out. These are some pictures and videos that many people obtained by sacrificing their lives. A blurry gray figure appeared on the screen. Even though it was quite blurry, the instant Yunfeng saw it, his eyes widened. That was clearly Ling Chen's figure and equipment. How could he be mistaken? What's going on? Yunfeng muttered in shock. He suddenly felt incredibly unfamiliar with this world. Boom! 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 Death, screams of pain, blood, and destruction. As a massive explosion sounded out, shaking all of Japan, Dainichi City was completely destroyed, and it was as if it had evaporated from this world without a trace remaining. The Shura advanced, walking incredibly slowly. However, he walked 1,000 meters in just a blink of an eye, and it was as if what he walked on was not ground but space. Wherever he went, he left behind destroyed ruins. Behind him were mountains of fragmented corpses, red ground, and rivers of blood. Rumble. The Shura stopped walking. In front of him were Japanese soldiers in heavy armor and tanks, while 10 or so combat helicopters flew towards him in the air. In this massive disaster, the Japanese army's response was incredibly fast. When that terrifying figure appeared in their line of sight, the combat helicopters released many missiles at him. The tanks also locked onto the Shura, continuously shooting at him. Boom! 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 In an instant, the Shura's surroundings had been completely blasted, turning into an ocean of destruction. The combined firing power of the 10 or so combat helicopters and 10 or so tanks was incredibly terrifying. The Shura's surroundings were now filled with sand and dust, and the deafening explosions could be heard from tens of kilometers away. This sort of might was used to deal with a single person. Anyone would feel that this was ridiculous even if it was against someone who could single-handedly destroy a city. By now, the The soldiers could not see anything because of the sand and dust, and they had been deafened by the repeated explosions. After a while, the attacks finally stopped, and the soldiers looked at the scene in front of them. They could only imagine how it looked after all of those explosions. After all of those attacks, even a mountain would be reduced to nothing, much less a person. They felt that moving out 10 or so combat helicopters and 10 or so tanks against a single person was simply incredibly exaggerated. Tap, tap, tap. After countless weapons had fired, it should have been impossible to hear a person's footsteps. However, no matter if it was the soldiers in the tanks or in the combat helicopters, they could clearly hear a set of heavy footsteps. Those footsteps seemed to be stepping on their hearts, causing their hearts to beat faster and faster. The sand and dust gradually cleared up, and soon, the soldiers could see a silver figure walking closer and closer towards them. The figure had a deathly aura about him and walked with even steps. He did not seem injured in the slightest, and even his clothes were not damaged at all. It was as if their terrifying attacks had been just an illusion and had not harmed him at all. A chilling feeling spread through the soldiers' bodies, causing them to uncontrollably tremble. Now, they knew that they had met a real demon. Seeing the Shura walking slowly and quickly at the same time, the soldiers felt a fear that they had never experienced before. Even though they were in combat helicopters and tanks, they did not feel safe at all, and their bodies trembled uncontrollably. Was this a person or a demon? No. Even a demon wouldn't be so terrifying. A bloody light flashed in the Shura's eyes. He did not make any big actions. Rather, he only raised his palm towards the front. Boom! 16 tanks and 12 combat helicopters were instantly blown apart, and even the Japanese soldiers inside them were reduced to dust, disappearing from the Shura's view. Getting rid of these obstructions took a merely instant for the Shura. He lowered his palm and continued towards, seeming to traverse 1,000 meters with each step. Another place. Is this your full moon mirror? Can you really see Big Brother Ling Chen through it? Xiaoqi asked as she looked at the mirror that Tian took out. The mirror was about half a meter in diameter, and it looked like a normal mirror. It feels like something from a story, Suer said. The full moon mirror was left behind by my ancestors. Daddy and Mummy always kept it hidden, and if you think about someone while looking at it, they'll appear in the mirror. However, it can only be used once every 3 years. It's just that Daddy, Mummy, Grandpa, and Grandma all don't know how to use it. However, just then, I suddenly thought about a way to use it, and it should work. Tian put the mirror down carefully and sat down in front of it. She gently placed her small hand on the center of the mirror and slowly closed her eyes, silently saying Ling Chen's name. Following this, her hand shined with a faint white light, and the mirror lit up with a similar light, causing an image to gradually become clearer on it. Wah! I can see something in the mirror. Did you succeed? Xiaoqi cried out in excitement. It seems like it. Li Xiaoshui slightly nodded and looked into the mirror as she sighed. There are so many incredible things in the world. Even though I've lived for over 20 years, I've been living at the bottom of a well. Tian opened her eyes and expectantly looked at the mirror. Behind her, Gu Qinghan, Fei Yola, Mu Bingyao, Chao Ying, Chao Shi, Xianyuan Diawu, Yunming Xian, Xiaoqi, and Suer also looked at it without blinking. The image became clearer until it did not look blurry at all. The scene in the mirror seemed to be at the center of a city because of the buildings and the densely packed people. Where is this? Xianyuan Diawu asked. It's the city center of Japan's capital, Nichi City. Fei said. Eh? How did you know Fei? Yunming Xian asked in surprise. Because Big Sis has been there before. Yola replied. It's indeed Nichi City. The sun disk statue and the sun skyscraper are iconic features of Japan's capital, The buildings are also the ones you would see there, Du Qinghan said as she nodded. Over the years, she had gone to Japan quite a few times. Since Onigu says so, it must mean that it is so. Yunming Xian slightly frowned. But if it's working, shouldn't the mirror be showing Ling Tian? Why is it showing Japan's capital? Just as Yunming Xian spoke, the person who she wanted to see appeared within the mirror. The silver figure blurred, and it seemed to teleport into a busy crowd. Before the crowd could panic, a silver arc slashed out, and 10 or so people were immediately slashed in half and sent flying. Ah! BB Big Brother Ling. Ling Tian? The girls all cried out. The figure and equipment were exactly the same as Ling Chen in the Mystic Moon world, and the lower part of his face exposed under the mask allowed the girls, who were familiar with him, to confirm his identity. They had wondered what sort of scene they would see when they saw him again, but they had never thought that it would be this sort of scene. A disaster began in Nichi City. The Shura continuously whirled his spear around, and each time he walked forwards, countless people would be obliterated, destroying everything around him. Their faces became incredibly pale, and their pupils trembled in disbelief and terror. Within their ears, they heard the explosions and screams from within the mirror, as if it was a symphony of the apocalypse. Because of how much blood there was, rivers of blood began to form on the desolated ground. The place where Ling Chen was standing had a heap of fragmented body parts and rivers of blood, and he stood peacefully as he looked at the results of his destruction. A black fog swirled around him, making him look like a fiendish demon god from hell. In just a few breaths of time, the prosperous city had been reduced to a bloodied ruin. As the wind blew, a dense smell of blood and faint howls could be heard, making the scene seem like a true hell on earth. The girls' faces were incredibly pale, looking like they had just experienced a terrible sickness. Apart from Tian and the ones who had walked out of hell, they all looked away, not daring to continue looking at the mirror. Their stomachs felt as if they were tossing and turning, their fear of blood and gore making them feel on the verge of collapse. Ling Chen, no. That's definitely not Big Brother Ling Tian. It's definitely not. Tian, the scene in the mirror was just an illusion, right? It has to be, right? Tian continued to stare at the mirror, her pupils constantly dilating and contracting. In an instant, a name that she had never encountered appeared in her mind, and she subconsciously muttered it. Shura? What do you mean, Tian? Only Faye remained somewhat calm, hearing Tian mutter something. Tian continued to stare at the mirror as unfamiliar memories appeared in her mind, and she said softly, "The Shura is a terrifying creature created due to incredible hatred and despair. Because of immense pain, despair, and hatred, it would rather destroy its own consciousness, releasing itself from its pain and despair, and obtain a terrifying power to destroy everything. Once one becomes a Shura, he or she will continuously massacre everything, using death and blood to nourish its dead soul. Regarding the legends about Shuras, a long time ago, a Shura appeared. From how Big Brother looks, he seems just like the Shura from the legends. Big Brother must have thought that we all died, causing him to feel such pain, despair, and hatred, turning him into a Shura." The girls' expressions all froze, making them feel as if they had heard an incredibly imaginary legend. However, hadn't they just experienced something incredibly incomprehensible? To them, all of this was just a horrible nightmare. If this is all true, what will happen to him? Will he keep killing like this? And why is he in Japan? Just what happened during that period of time? And what should we do now? Faye frowned as she tossed out question after question. Even she felt incredibly terrified and unsettled. However, there was no one to answer her questions. Japan. All that remained around Ling Chen was blood and ruins. There was nothing that could stop his slaughtering. Boundless terror eclipsed the entirety of Japan, and it slowly spread to the rest of the world. Nichi City, which had such a long history, had been completely destroyed, and all creatures and buildings within it had been reduced to dust. Looking at the desolation around him, the Shura silently stood there and did not move. After staying silent for a while, he finally moved. He slowly raised the lunar scourge divine spear, and an incredibly dark light burst forth from the spearhead. Destroy everything. Let this world, filled with lies, dirtiness, and pain, disappear forever. What is Big Brother doing? Seeing Ling Chen raise the lunar scourge divine spear, an intense wave of uneasiness appeared within Tian's heart. Rumble. The ground started to quake, and countless people cried out as they fell to the ground. Houses shook, and countless items fell to the ground and shattered. Large cracks opened up on the ground, and countless people all over the world cried out earthquake. The oceans also started to rise with massive waves. This was not a normal earthquake, and the entire world trembled. What's more, this trembling was becoming more and more intense. The place where the Shura stood rapidly descended because the power that the Shura was madly gathering was obliterating everything around him. Finally, the Shura opened his blood-red eyes, raising the lunar scourge divine spear high into the air before slamming it into the ground at his feet. Boom! Big Brother. No. Ah! Tian cried out as she grabbed at the mirror. However, she could only see Ling Chen and could not stop his actions. Just as her hands touched the mirror, the image became completely dark. Tian's hand powerlessly slid down the mirror, a dumbfounded look in her eyes. She slowly raised her head, looking at the starry sky. Right above her, far away, a star shined with a blinding light before slowly disappearing. The Earth was destroyed by Big Brother, completely destroyed. The image in the full moon mirror disappeared, and the full moon mirror became a normal mirror again. Today, they encountered many things that they would have even dreamt about. This single day had flipped many things they knew upside down, and it made them feel as if they had jumped into a legend. They had thought that they were going to die, but after opening their eyes, they found that they were still alive on another planet. After calming down, they thought that no matter what else happened, they would be able to accept it. However, Tian's words caused them to feel giddy, as if their heads were rapidly spinning. Earth had been destroyed. This sort of thing would occasionally happen in movies, but no one had ever thought that such a thing would actually happen. They had somehow been transported from Earth to here, and what they wanted most was to return because that was where their family, friends, memories, and experiences, as well as where their most important person was. Now, Tian had told them that the Earth had been completely destroyed by the person who was the most important to them. Earth disappearing from this universe meant that their relatives, friends, and everything else on the Earth had disappeared forever. No, impossible. This can't be impossible. Hearing this sort of news was a massive blow to all of them, and even Li Xiaoshua's face was completely pale. No, this must be a lie. It must be Dad, Auntie, Uncle, Wu. Su'er covered her mouth, her face covered with tears. Is this a nightmare? They raised her head, looking at the starry sky as she muttered. Then, what about him? He couldn't have. Xianyuan Dio Wu came to Tian's side and asked in a trembling voice. Ling Chen was her only attachment, and even if the entire world perished, it was not as important as Ling Chen to her. I don't know. I don't know. Tian vigorously shook her head, feeling incredibly panicked. Why did things turn out like this? Just what happened? Big Brother, Big Brother. Just as darkness and an oppressive pain covered their hearts, two dark figures quickly flew towards them from the distance. After drawing near to them, one of the figures stopped, a look of shock appearing in his calm eyes. The other person also stopped, asking in confusion. What is it, boss? Why did we suddenly stop? Oh, hey, I thought this region has already been cleaned before, but looks like some fish slipped out of the net. The first figure did not reply and suddenly descended, landing heavily on the ground. He stood in front of the girls, coldly looking at them. The other figure also descended, causing a massive explosion as he landed. As they descended, the girls came to their senses and looked over their shoulders. When they saw the person in front, a look of shock and fear appeared on their faces. Rahu. Faye's expression instantly darkened, her heart falling to an icy valley. It's that person. Why? Why is he here? The first person who had descended was someone who they would never forget because just a few hours ago, this person had struck them with deathly fear. Even the invincible Faye was completely powerless in front of him. In the end, they had nearly been killed by him, and they never thought that they would once again see this terrifying person after coming to this distant world. Oh, boss, they actually know your name and seem to know you. That doesn't seem right. With boss's abilities, I don't think anyone could escape from your hands. Rahu's body was tall and muscular, while the person beside him was even taller and more powerfully built. He was 3 meters tall and 3 times thicker than a normal person. Just by standing there, he gave a formless pressure. He was the Oracle emissary who was in charge of the Xiya Star's Burning Heavens plan, Chong. Rahu once again ignored Chong's words. He looked at the girls and said calmly, "Even though I don't know how you didn't die or how you arrived here, none of that's important. Since you're the people who you told me to kill, if she found out that you were still alive, she would be very unhappy. This time, I'll kill you completely so that a miracle can't happen again. You wish. I won't let you harm them." Tian rushed to the front, spreading her arms out to shield the people behind her. She gritted her teeth and yelled in a low voice to Faye, "Hurry up and leave. Take the big sisters and auntie and leave. I'll stop them." Tian's heart felt incredibly icy. When she found out that she had returned to the Xiya Star, she brought everyone else to a peaceful place, slowly waiting for her power to fully awaken. This process took a day, and when that time came, she had the confidence to defeat the terrifying Chong. During this period of time, what she feared most was being discovered by Chong. Who would have thought that she had not only been found by Chong but also Rahu, who she still would not be able to defeat even if she fully awakened her power? Looking at Tian, Chong's eyes widened. "It's you? It's actually you. Humph. You're the big bad guy who killed my daddy and so many of my friends. I definitely won't forgive you." Tian clenched her fists, her gaze full of hatred and fury as she yelled as loudly as she could. "So it really was you." Chong smirked as he laughed. Hee, boss, remember how I told you before that there was a person with a demigod godly soul on the Xiya Star? That's right, it's this little girl. She escaped last time, and I never thought she would come back. Ha ha ha. This is great. Her soul will be the best nourishment for the Godchild, and it can compare to the souls of 10 million people. So it's like that. She's the one you were talking about. Rahu looked over and slowly nodded. Her godly soul has awakened, but it has only been a few hours. If we gave her another day, even you wouldn't be able to take her down. Oh, awakened? But her age? Humph. Forget it. Since she's awakened, we have to get rid of her. Boss, you shouldn't trouble yourself with these small matters, so I'll take care of it. As Chong spoke, his massive body rushed forwards, his thick, steel-like hands grabbing towards Tian. Watch out, Tian. Faye was quite far away, but she still felt a pressure like that of a mountain descending. One could only imagine just how terrifying the power within Chong's massive arms were. This sort of power could flatten a mountain, while Tian was only a small girl. As Tian watched Chong's arms come closer and closer, she gritted her teeth, raised her arms, and crossed them, yelling in her tender voice, "Big White! Attack! Roar!" A massive roar sounded out as a massive white bear appeared in the air, rushing towards Chong. The sudden appearance of the massive white bear gave Chong a big fright, and he subconsciously shrank back, slamming into the big white bear with his body. Boom! A deafening explosion sounded out as the ground trembled. Chong was sent flying into the air and flipped more than 10 times. By the time he landed and steadied his body, he was in a sorry state. His eyes widened as he stared at the large white bear. She awakened a god from the ancient Skyfall demon clan, and their divine power is extremely strange. They can summon beings from other dimensions. However, she has only just awakened and has awakened perhaps 1/3 of her 50% godhood. You should be able to deal with her, Rahu said expressionlessly. So it's like that. I was wondering where this thing came from. Chong gritted his teeth as fury appeared in his eyes. The powerful him had been beaten back by a little god. This was an intolerable humiliation. Chong raised his arms, and as grinding sound sounded out, his incredibly thick arms suddenly became even thicker. He looked at Tian and coldly laughed. Who cares about what sort of godly soul you awakened? Under my divine power, everyone will be crushed, don't worry. I won't kill you instantly because your soul is very precious. Ah ha 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 ha. As Chong madly laughed, he blasted his arms towards Tian, the power seeming to be able to make the heavens fall and split the earth. Hurry up and run. Go! Tian once again yelled as she looked at Chong's attack. She did not try to evade because if she evaded instead of blocking the attack, Chong's terrifying power would destroy the people behind her. Do your best, Big White. As Tian cried out, the big white bear roared as it once again leapt towards Chong, its massive paws swiping towards Chong's huge arms. A massive explosion rang out as Big White cried out in pain. Under this collision, the big white bear was sent flying and turned into a ray of white light as it disappeared. Chong's arms continued forwards, coming incredibly close to Tian. I won't lose. Tian still did not dodge. Rather, she met Chong's body with her much smaller body, punching with her own hands, and she met Chong's heavy fists. Chong's body stopped in midair, his fists, which were like 1,000-kilogram hammers, stopped by Tian's tiny hands. Even the force behind the punch had been completely dispelled by Tian, so that no one behind her was injured. Even though Chong's might have been reduced by more than half by Big White, the fact that Tian was able to do such a thing with her skinny body was already a miracle, because the Skyfall Demon Clan's divine power was focused on transformation and summoning instead of strength and constitution. The scene persisted for 2 or 3 seconds before Tian was blasted away. She stumbled back 7 or 8 steps and fell heavily to the ground, a trace of blood trickling out of her mouth. Tian. The girls hurriedly came over and helped Tian up. Tian's eyes were slightly unfocused, and she said powerlessly while looking at the big sisters around her, "Hurry and run. I'll stop them. I can do it." As she spoke, she struggled to stand properly, vigorously wiping the blood away from her mouth. However, her face was shockingly pale. Tian, we won't run. How can we throw you behind and run away? Xian Diawu supported Tian's body as she spoke softly. If we abandon Tian and run away, we might as well just immediately die. Chaochi said seriously. Remember, we're your big sisters. Big sisters protecting their little sisters is the right thing to do. Big sisters should never leave behind their little sisters, Li Xiaoxue said gently as she gently stroked Tian's hair. Tian, you're so amazing. No wonder why he likes you so much, Yola said with an expression of admiration. Of course, Tian is Master's treasure. Back then, she even saved Master's life, Xiaoying said as she smiled. It was not just Xiaoying who was smiling. Facing the god of death, all of their fears slowly disappeared. They gathered around Tian, feeling incredibly peaceful. Seeing this young, resolute little girl using her tender body to protect them, their hearts were filled with warmth, melting away all negative emotions. Even though they were about to die, what was there to be afraid of? Earth had been destroyed, and everything was gone. Perhaps dying would be better. That way, they wouldn't have to live on this strange planet in sadness. Perhaps this life was just a dream, and this was the end of the dream. They would face the end of this dream with smiles and a peaceful state of mind. Hearing their gentle voices, Tian's tense heart also relaxed. She knew better than anyone that she could definitely not defeat Chong in her current state, much less Rahu. Even stalling for time so that the others could run away was impossible. With her current strength, no matter how much she struggled, she would not be able to change the outcome. Tian's heart became incredibly peaceful, and she did not feel anxious anymore. She did not struggle anymore, and she instead leaned against Gu Qinghan behind her, enjoying the warmth. Auntie Gu, are you really Big Brother's mummy? That's right, but we were separated when he was born, Gu Qinghan softly replied. Thank you, Auntie Gu. Gu Qinghan felt quite surprised. Why are you thanking me? Tian smiled. Because Auntie Gu is Big Brother's mummy. Without Auntie Gu, Big Brother wouldn't exist, and I never would have met Big Brother. Gu Qinghan's body slightly trembled. She could not say anything, and she could only gently hug this little girl. She could feel this girl's resignation, but in the final moments of her life, what she displayed was her love for Ling Chen. With just a few words, she melted Gu Qinghan and all of the girls' hearts. Hee, what are you doing? I can't believe you were able to receive an 80% blow from me using your Skyfall Demon Clan's power, which isn't suited to physical fighting at all. However, it looks like you used half of your life to receive that blow. Chong coldly smiled as he spoke arrogantly, swinging his arms about as he started to laugh. Girl, I'll only use 80% again this time, so try to receive it again. If you can't, apart from you, everyone will turn to dust. Ha ha ha, oh? Chong suddenly stopped laughing as a look of surprise appeared in his eyes. This was because he found that the gazes of the people in front of him had suddenly changed. Their hateful looks became hazy as they stared ahead, and their eyes all widened as if they had seen the most unbelievable scene in the world, and they were clearly looking behind where Chong and Rahu were. Rahu also detected the change in their gazes, and he turned around at the same time as Chong. Even though it was midnight, the bright stars made it easier to see in the darkness. In the dim lighting, they could see a gray figure. He was tall, and seemed to be wearing a thin armor that gave off a dark silver light. In his hand was a silver spear that was longer than his body. The instant they saw this person, Rahu and Chong felt their hair stand on end. This was because the figure was less than 5 steps away from them, but they had not detected him at all, and it was as if he had appeared extremely silently and stealthily. This was the first time they had experienced such a thing, and they felt a chill through their bodies. Big Brother! Big Brother! Is it you? Is it you? The figure was about 30 steps away from them, and in the dim lighting, they could only roughly make out his figure and equipment. However, when Tian saw the figure, she felt as if she had been struck by lightning, and tears uncontrollably poured out of her eyes. Even though she could only see a hazy figure, she had always been by Ling Chen's side, so she felt a sense of familiarity in her soul, making her able to immediately recognize him. "Ah, he's Big Brother Ling Tian?" Tian's words sounded like a peal of thunder in everyone's ears. "Big Brother Ling Tian? Is it really? Is it really? Ling Chen, is it you? Is it you?" Li Xiaoshui took a step forwards and called out. Xianyuan Diawu also stared ahead for a long time before muttering emotionally, "I'm sure of it, it's him. Titi's really him." With Tian's cry and Xianyuan Diawu's incredibly sure words, everyone's still hearts became incredibly excited. "Aye! Who the hell are you? You dare to act all mysterious in front of your lord Wan Chong?" After the initial fright, Wan Chong became furious. This person had made him suddenly feel fear, humiliating him. The figure did not respond to the girl's cries or to Wan Chong's furious yell. He silently stood there, as a dark fog swirled around him. "How you dare to look down on your elder?" Seeing that the person did not reply, Wan Chong became even more infuriated. He raised a fist and smashed it towards the person. "You can go die then!" "Ah! Arg!" The first cry came from the girls, who felt incredibly worried. They had just seen how terrifying Wan Chong's arms were. Even a massive boulder would be reduced to dust by such a punch. The second cry came from Wan Chong. As his fist smashed into the figure's chest, a muffled explosion sounded out, causing the surrounding ground to tremble. However, the person did not move at all, and the sound of bones cracking sounded out as Wan Chong screamed like a pig being slaughtered. Wan Chong was sent flying like a rubber ball and fell to the ground in a sorry state. He cradled his broken right arm and howled, his face turning green. At this moment, Rahu's normally calm expression greatly changed. He knew just how terrifying Wan Chong's power was. Even he did not dare to directly receive a strike from Wan Chong. And yet, not only had this person taken Wan Chong's punch without defending against it, but he had also not moved at all, and the result had been Wan Chong's arm being broken. Only someone with at least 70% godhood could be able to do such a thing. In this world, the only person who had above 50% godhood was Qi Xing. When had such a terrifying person appeared? "Who are you?" Rahu's muscles and nerves were all incredibly taut, and he stared at the gray figure. When he was able to see the person clearly, he deeply frowned, saying, "It's you? That silver armor and silver spear. This person's attire was the same as the earthling who Qi Xing and Qi you had spared before. Ling Chen. No Shura." Wan Chong's heavy blows seemed to awaken the demon god. The Shura suddenly moved, instantly arriving in front of Wan Chong. Even Rahu had not been able to see when he had moved. Before Rahu could even make a sound, the silver spear stabbed Wan Chong's body and pierced through his chest and out his back. "Wah!" Wan Chong cried out as he stared at the silver spear stabbing into his chest, unable to believe that his incredibly tough body had been pierced through like tofu. His lips parted as if he wanted to say something, but at this moment, the Shura's power mercilessly exploded. Before he could make another sound, his body exploded, turning into tiny fragments until nothing was left. "Ah! Ah!" Rahu's eyes bulged, his mouth wide open, as a trembling voice sounded out from the back of his throat. He simply could not believe or imagine how such a powerful person like Wan Chong had been instantly killed. The Shura slowly turned, emotionlessly staring at Rahu. In that instant, Rahu felt as if he had fallen into an icy cavern, an indescribable chilling feeling spreading across his body. In the next instant, he saw the spear that had destroyed Wan Chong going towards his chest. "Ah!" Rahu roared and jumped up, avoiding the Shura's attack, using all of his strength to escape. Facing this incredibly terrifying person, who was not necessarily any weaker than King, he could only think about escaping because he did not even have a trace of hope in winning. If he didn't run, he would end up like Chong. Rahu was incredibly fast, and he disappeared from the girl's vision in the blink of an eye. However, nothing that the Shura had locked on to could escape from him. The Shura slowly opened his palm towards where Rahu had escaped. Rahu had traveled quite far, and in the blink of an eye, he could see nothing behind him. He let out a sigh of relief. He suddenly felt a massive attractive force from behind him, dragging him backwards helplessly. The wind howled in his ears, and by the time he stopped, he could smell the scent of death. This was because his back was pressed against the Shura's outstretched palm. Who are you, Arg? After giving this final, pitiful howl, Rahu's body was shattered into tiny pieces as blood splattered everywhere. This demon god, who had taken countless lives, never thought that he would die in such a manner. The evening wind blew, bringing with it the heavy scent of blood and gore. In this godless age, Chong and Rahu were within the top 5 most powerful existences, and they were beings that could single-handedly destroy planets. And yet, these two terrifying people had been incredibly helpless in front of the Shura, and they had been destroyed in an instant. Another place. Qi Xing's eyes suddenly opened as she frowned. What is it? Qiyu looked over and asked. Rahu and Chong died, Qi Xing said in a low voice. What? Even Qiyu was shocked. Impossible. In this world, apart from you, no one can defeat Rahu, and Rahu and Chong were together. There's virtually nothing that can threaten him. The reality is that they'd indeed died, and they died immediately after each other. Qi Xing's frown became deeper and deeper. Qiyu was right. There was no one apart from her who could defeat Rahu, so she was incredibly shocked at Rahu and Chong's deaths. Following this, she closed her eyes, and after falling silent for a moment, she opened her eyes, a deep look of shock within them. Xiya star, the power of 80% godhood, Qi Xing said slowly and darkly. What? Impossible. The only person who has above 50% godhood is you. If there was someone else, you would have detected them long ago. Qi stood up and said in shock. Even though it's quite inconceivable, I'm certain about this. In this universe, there's actually someone who also has 80% godhood like me. Qi Xing slowly stood up, her eyes flashing coldly. And this person appeared on Xiya star, killing Rahu and Chong. Looks like that person is my enemy. Who would have thought that there was someone who could actually threaten me? Now that Rahu and Chong have died, the burning heavens plan can't continue, and now someone like this has happened. Looks like I can't wait until the Godchild matures. I must absorb the Godchild's power right now. Even though she's still quite young and not very powerful yet, she still contains the power of a true god, and adding on my true god-level soul, perhaps this power will allow me to step into the realm of true gods. When that time comes, I'll immediately go and destroy that person. The appearance of someone else with 80% godhood and Rahu and Chong's deaths caused Qi Xing to feel an unprecedented sense of danger. She immediately made a decision and walked towards the space where the Godchild was. All right, I'll help you. Qiyu got up and followed Qi Xing. Ling Chen, is it you? Xianyuan Diaowu walked forwards, trying to get close to him. Don't go near Big Brother. Diaowu, don't go over there. 2 cries sounded out. One came from Tian. Because of her strange memories, she understood the state that Ling Chen was in. The other cry came from Fei. She grabbed Xianyuan Diaowu, saying as she frowned, Diaowu, haven't you noticed that he's still brimming with killing intent even though only we are left? With Xianyuan Diaowu's abilities, how could she not feel the immense killing intent from the Shura? However, he was Ling Chen, her Tianya. He's Big Brother, but don't go near him. Tian put her arm out in front of the big sisters and Auntie behind her, her eyes becoming teary. She wanted to leap into Ling Chen's embrace more than anyone else, but she also knew better than anyone else that they absolutely could not go near him. She said sorrowfully, "In order to become a Shura, one must fall into despair and wipe away their consciousness and nature in exchange for the power to destroy everything. Big Brother must have thought that we all died, falling into anguish and despair, becoming a Shura. Upon becoming a Shura, his consciousness was replaced with boundless killing intent. Right now, Big Brother won't recognize us, and he might even want to kill us as well." Tian's words stabbed into everyone's hearts like an ice spike, causing the joy from seeing Ling Chen to freeze. "No, he's Big Brother, Ling Tian. He wouldn't hurt us," Xiya said when the Shura turned to them, his killing intent billowing out, locking on to all of them. They felt as if there was 1,000-kilogram heavy stone weighing down on them, making it almost impossible to breathe. In an instant, the Shura walked towards them. He had only taken a single step, but he seemed to pass through space, instantly appearing in front of them, the lunar scourge divine spear, which destroyed Earth, piercing towards them. "Big Brother! No!" The girl's pupils all contracted, facing Ling Chen, even though Tian had said that he had turned into a terrifying god of death. It was difficult for them to feel true fear towards him, nor could they believe that his consciousness was completely gone and that he would kill them. However, when Ling Chen's killing intent covered them, and he attacked them, they felt as if their hearts had shattered. They did not fear death, but they would never have thought that they would die under Ling Chen's hands. The terrifying Chong and Rahu were unable to take a single attack from the Shura, much less them. The Shura could lightly wave his hand and kill all of them in an instant. When the Shura's spear shot towards them, Tian subconsciously spread out her arms, trying to protect those behind her, and she cried out, her eyes squeezed shut. Tian's cry traveled far in the night sky and gradually died down. 1 second, 2 seconds passed. Tian, who had closed her eyes in despair, opened her eyes in confusion. She saw the Shura standing less than 10 steps away from her, the spear pointing towards them, but his actions had stopped, and his killing intent had become quite chaotic. "Ah!" Tian stared at him dumbly. In her memories, the Shura was cold-blooded and would mercilessly continue kill. No matter who it was, he would not show any hesitation or mercy. However, the Shura in front of her had stopped because of her cry, as if he was hesitating, and his chaotic killing intent seemed to be struggling. Could it be? Could it be? As if she saw a glimmer of light in the darkness of despair, Tian almost sobbed with joy and yelled out, "Big Brother! Big Brother! I'm Tian! I'm Tian! We didn't die! Look at me! I'm Tian! Big sisters! Auntie! Big Brother didn't attack us. This means that his consciousness has not been completely erased, and there's still a shadow of us in his mind. Otherwise, with the Shura's nature, he wouldn't have stopped just then. Let's all call out to Big Brother. Maybe we'll be able to wake him up." "Are really?" The Shura's strange actions and Tian's words caused everyone to feel a slight trace of hope. Xian Wu's body trembled, and she stepped forwards, hurriedly yelling, "Ling Chen, I'm Wu. Hurry and look at me. I'm your Wu, and you're my Tianya, not the Shura. Adam, look, we're all here. We didn't die. You should wake up. You told me that you conquered the Shura's power from the lunar scourge, so you'll be able to conquer this too. You're the invincible Adam." They yelled with a penetrating voice. "Big Brother Ling Tian, I'm Chi. We know you turned into this for us, but we're really fine, so please wake up. You're Ling Tian, the most powerful person in the world, and there's nothing you can't do. Big Brother Ling Tian, I'm Suer. You haven't carried out the promise we made, and you can't go back on your word." Suer yelled pitiably. "Master, we're Chowing and Chaoshi. We've promised to be with you for life, so please wake up." The Shura's body started to slightly tremble, and the black fog around him started to chaotically swirl around, his killing intent becoming more and more uncertain. The Shura shouldn't have been able to be affected by anything because Shuras did not have hearts, only boundless killing intent. However, there were no absolutes. If there was something that could affect the Shura's heart, it was only them, who should have died already. Because Ling Chen had thought that they had died, Qi used lies, and the fact that Xiya and the fate-defying heavenly orb had been taken away from him, he had fallen into utter despair and had become a Shura. However, their death seemed to have been reversed, and they now stood before him alive. Their voices were like heavy hammers pounding on his silent soul, trying to wake it up. Wah! Wah wah! The Shura's body started to sway, and he bestially roared. His roar seemed to be one of pain and struggle, and he started to shakily retreat. Seeing the Shura react like this, Tian felt delighted. So her memories weren't completely correct. In front of the Shura's closest people, he could still be woken up. Tian brought her hands in front of her chest and shouted with hope. "Big brother, I'm right here. Auntie Gu, Big Sister Xiao Shui, Big Sister Meng Xian, Big Sister Fei, Big Sister Yola, Big Sister Dia Wu, Big Sister Su Su, Big Sister Chi Chi, Big Sister Bing Yao, Big Sister Ing, and Big Sister Shi are all here. We're all fine. So big brother, come back to us. Come back to us immediately. Do your best, big brother. You can definitely do it. Wawahe." The Shura's voice became even more pained, and his aura fluctuated as his expression twisted. The red glow within his eyes sometimes glowed and sometimes disappeared. At this moment, he heaven-shakingly roared, his killing intent suddenly increasing by more than 10 times before he rushed forwards and thrust the lunar scourge divine spear towards Tian's chest. Tian had been filled with hope, and she had not expected everything to fall apart so suddenly. When she saw Ling Chen rush towards her filled with killing intent, she froze, and her body became incredibly pale. The attack was not very fast, but in her despair, she could not move at all, her eyes losing the light within them. No! The girls all stared in shock, and just as Ling Chen's spear was about to pierce into Tian's body, a figure leapt out from behind Tian, knocking Tian away. The lunar scourge divine spear did not pierce through Tian, and it instead stabbed through Gu Qinghan's chest and went through her back. Blood exploded out from Gu Qinghan's chest, falling on the Shura's hands. "Ah! Auntie Gu!" Seeing this, the girls all cried out in heartache and horror. The Shura's attack was incredibly terrifying. One Chong and Rahu's bodies, which were tougher than steel by tens of times, had been obliterated by a single attack. One could only imagine what would happen to a human body. However, after the lunar scourge divine spear stabbed into her, Gu Qinghan's body did not explode, because when Gu Qinghan's blood landed on the Shura's hands, he completely froze. Gu Qinghan was unable to hear the girls' voices clearly, and she couldn't even feel the pain anymore. She knew that her consciousness was dissipating, and soon she would be gone. She opened her eyes, looking at the Shura's face. This was the first time they had been so close. She slowly used all of her strength to raise her arms and hug the Shura's body. "Ling Chen, my child, hurry and wake up. They're all your loved ones. Don't hurt them. After you wake up, don't blame yourself, because after hugging my son before dying, I have no regrets." Gu Qinghan's voice became weaker and weaker, and as her eyes closed, her body fell against the Shura. There was a beautiful smile on her face as 2 streaks of tears flowed down her face. She was smiling because she could finally hug her child, making her feel completely satisfied. This hug had been bought with her life. However, she still had some regrets. She still wanted to hear him call her mother, and wanted to use her time to make up for the past 20 years or so to him, and wanted to watch him start a family and have his own children. Waha. Argh. The lunar scourge divine spear disappeared, and the Shura grabbed his head with one hand, howling painfully like a wolf. His other hand held onto Gu Qinghan's unconscious body, refusing to let go. Finally, the Shura heavily kneeled on the ground, and Gu Qinghan's body lost its support, falling in front of him. He stared at Gu Qinghan's bloodied body, his aura becoming incredibly chaotic as his face and body shuddered. Save her. She, save her. Hurry and save her. The Shura said incredibly hazily and with great difficulty. The red glow in his eyes flashed, his body no longer struggling and his expression no longer twisted. Instead, it was pained and terrified. Master, while you're awake? Save her. Hurry up and save her. The Shura grabbed at his face as he roared. The Godchild who disappeared again. Indeed, the Shura had woken up. After being covered in his kin's blood and being called by his mother, he had finally woken up. This should have been a joyous occasion, but no one could feel happy. As he woke up, Gu Qinghan's life was slipping away. Tian leapt over to Gu Qinghan's body, sobbing uncontrollably. The other girls also came over, their eyes red, feeling completely devastated. Tian was crying, and she stretched out her hand, pressing it on Gu Qinghan's wound as a gentle white light started to glow. Tian, she. Seeing the white light in Tian's hand, Ling Chen felt as if he had seen a glimmer of hope in the boundless darkness. Tian raised her head, tearily looking at him. To be able to look at him so closely, she felt quite blissful and satisfied, and she sobbed, saying, Onigu's internal organs have been badly damaged, and this is the healing art that Mummy taught me, but back then, I only liked to play and didn't learn it properly, so I could only let Ani keep going for a little while. I should have studied like my life depended on it, woo. Ling Chen had returned, but none of them were able to even say welcome back before sinking into despair again. Ling Chen's face was incredibly pale. He had woken up, but his strength had not been reduced at all. However, all of his strength was focused on killing and destroying, and he had no healing abilities. Looking at Gu Qinghan, whose life was flowing out of her, tears welled up in Ling Chen's eyes, and he ground his teeth so tightly that he felt that they were going to break. If Mummy was here, things would be okay. Mummy's the best healer on the Xiya star, and no matter how bad an injury is, she can heal it. Ling Chen, who had sunk into despair, suddenly grabbed Tian and hurriedly asked, Tian, where's your mummy? Hurry and tell me where she is. Ling Chen completely trusted Tian's words. There was a priest profession in the Mystic Moon world, and that profession had incredible healing abilities. The Mystic Moon world was actually the Mystic Moon planet, meaning that priests indeed existed. Qiyu had mentioned that the Xiya star's people were slightly more powerful than those of the Mystic Moon planet, so it was only natural that the Xiya star had such people. Since Tian said that her mother was a powerful healer, it was likely that she really could perfectly heal Gu Qinghan. I don't know. Tian's expression became grim as she shook her head. I want to find my mummy, but I've left here for more than 1 year, and I don't know where she is, or if she... Ling Chen did not say anything else. He leaped into the air and stopped there, closing his eyes and sending out his senses. With his current power, his mind could cover the entire Xiya star. However, putting aside whether Tian's mother was still alive, even if she was, the Xiya star was incredibly big, and there were countless beings on it. Finding her would be like finding a needle within a sea. Ling Chen could only pray that Tian's mother, the queen of the Xiya star, would have something that made her easy to find. Just as he gathered his thoughts, a strange but familiar feeling came from his mind. Ling Chen suddenly opened his eyes. This feeling, could it be Kyre? Ling Chen said hesitantly. As he called out, a jade-green light suddenly flashed in front of his body, and a pair of cute little wings emerged from the light before the rest of Kyre's little body floated out. Ah! It's Kyre! Why is Kyre here? Seeing Kyre, who belonged in the mystic moon world, appear here, Xiya cried out. Phew! I finally got out. Big Brother seems to have woken up. If you didn't wake up soon, we would have been scared to death, Kyre said in a scared and grumbling voice. However, there was also a hint of delight within her voice. Before Ling Chen could reply, she beat her wings and flew over to Godchild with a whoosh, closing her eyes and spreading out her hands. Nature's light! A pure, jade-green light slowly descended from Kyre's hands, falling on Godchild and all of the girls. Immediately, they felt as if a gentle and refreshing wind had blown over them, making them feel incredibly comfortable. The life-threatening wound on Godchild's chest stopped bleeding, and the flesh there recovered at a speed that could be seen with the naked eye. In just a few seconds, the wound was completely gone, replaced by new skin that was not scarred in the slightest. Her incredibly pale face also had a glow of redness to it. Ah! Heavens! Is this actually happening? The girls' mouths all dropped open as they watched this incomprehensible scene, filling them with disbelief. Onigu's injury has been completely healed? My injuries have been fully healed too, Xiya suddenly cried out. She moved the shoulder that had been injured by Rahu, reflecting her sword chi. That injury had been quite severe, but after being bathed by Kyre's light, it had completely disappeared, and she did not feel even a trace of discomfort anymore. Same with me. They moved her right arm as she looked at little Kyre in shock. He, of course. Our fairy healing magic is the most powerful healing magic. Seeing how shocked and delighted they looked, Kyre gave a pleased laugh. Ling Chen rushed down from the air and hugged Kyre. He did not care why he could summon Kyre here, nor did he even think about it. Right now, he was feeling too emotional. Kyre, this is too great. You've helped me so much. Aw, big brother, don't hug me so tightly. I can't breathe. Godchild's injury had been fully healed, but because of how much blood she had lost, her body was still quite weak, and she did not wake up immediately. However, her life was not in danger anymore, and if she rested, she would make a full recovery. They went to a normal village in the Xiya star where there were no residents. After putting Godchild in a room, Ling Chen looked at her for a long time before walking out. He sat on a large rock outside the house, silently staring at the night sky as his memories flashed chaotically in his mind. You must be feeling confused. They walked over and sat by Ling Chen's side. Oh, I'm not just feeling confused. Ling Chen laughed self-mockingly as he stretched out his hands, speaking in a low, hoarse voice. Just what did I do? Before, we killed so many people, but that was because we had missions to do, and they were all essentially evil people. Today, I killed so many innocent people, and I destroyed Earth. Ha. I destroyed Earth. I can't believe that such a ridiculous-sounding thing is true. The Earth exploded, and apart from us, everyone is dead. Ming Xian, Su, Chi, their relatives and friends are all gone. Even Xiya and the others. They're all dead. I killed them all. Ling Chen looked at his hands as he said blankly, but I'm still alive and awake. I should be punished to death by the heavens. They shook her head, saying, what we were afraid of the most was that you would think like this. I'm fine, but they all have their own families and friends. However, after you woke up, none of them mentioned it or even blamed you. Just then, they were all completely terrified, but they knew that you lost your consciousness because of them. If it wasn't for how much you love them, why would you have become a Shura? Moreover, the one who killed so many people and destroyed the earth was not you, Ling Chen, but the Shura. They won't blame you, and they will instead worry that you'll blame yourself for this. Ling Chen. Fei smiled. Even if it's for their sincere hearts, you should put down the shackles in your heart. Take responsibility for their futures and don't disappoint them, all right? Ling Chen fell speechless for a while before slowly nodding. Afterwards, he raised his head, asking, Fei, Qiyu told me that you were all killed by Rahu. When I left the game, I saw that our home, the Bamboo Sea Wonderland, had been turned into ruins. How did you all survive? And how did you get here? I don't know either. That's what we've been wondering about this whole time, Fei said as she slightly frowned. Back then, I could not take a single blow from Rahu, and Diao Wu and I were both injured. Afterwards, Rahu threw a heavy punch down at us from the air, and I thought we would all immediately die, but after I closed my eyes, I didn't feel us being attacked, and even the scent of the air changed. When we opened our eyes, we found that we had come here. We thought that we had all died and went to heaven, but Tian told us that this was her home and that it was called the Xiya Star. Just like that? Ling Chen felt incredibly shocked. Just like that. Fei nodded. After mysteriously coming to the Xiya Star, everyone had felt incredibly confused, feeling as if they were in a dream. What about you? What happened to you back then? And what about Xia? Did you find her? Fei asked. Fei's question caused Ling Chen to think back to what happened at the summit of the Godchild Peak. He gritted his teeth and hatred flashed in his eyes as he said in a low voice, Was it Rahu who wanted to kill you all? No. Fei shook her head and narrowed her eyes. The terrifying Rahu seemed to be searching for something, but after not finding it, he was preparing to leave when she suddenly appeared and told Rahu to kill all of us. Ling Chen's chest heaved. Xiya had not only lied to him, but she had also cruelly ordered them all to be killed. This was why he had become a Shura, killed countless people, and had destroyed the earth. In other words, Xiya was the source of all of these disasters. After hearing this from Fei, the hatred within his heart towards Xiya increased by many times. Ling Chen clenched his fists, saying in a low voice, Xiya, if I see you again, I'll definitely kill you with my own hands. Xia was taken away by them, Ling Chen said bitterly as he closed his eyes. Taken away? Why was she taken away? Isn't she just an orphan? Fei asked in surprise. Following this, Ling Chen told Fei about the ancient legends and Shidisika and Chiyu's identities. He told her how he had obtained the lunar scourge, how he had met Qiyu, the truth behind the mystic moon world, all of it. Everything he said was incredibly shocking, but at this moment, the best person for him to vent to was undeniably Fei. A mysterious space. Where's the Godchild? Where did the Godchild go? What is it, Xing? Hearing Xing's slightly panicked voice, Qiyu rushed in, finding that the blue crystal orb was empty. The God-sealing barrier was empty, causing her to deeply frown. The Godchild disappeared. How could she disappear? Xing looked around, unable to find the Godchild. Impossible. Qiyu shook her head in confusion. The Godchild couldn't have escaped from the God-sealing barrier. Just then, both of us were close by, so it's impossible for anyone to have snuck in. Even if the Godchild managed to escape, we would have detected any fluctuations in the God-sealing barrier's power. Xing already knew everything that Qiyu was saying. However, the Godchild had truly disappeared. After bringing the Godchild here, she had been only an instant away from the Godchild. At this distance, she believed that no one in the world could come close without her noticing, even if that person had 80% godhood. There was no one around except Xiya, but Xiya had been by her side this entire time, so she could not have done anything. Moreover, even if Xiya wanted to take the Godchild away, with her mere 20% godhood, she could not do anything. Qixing looked around, unable to find any traces of the Godchild. Even her aura had completely disappeared. With Qixing's abilities, nothing in the surrounding 10,000 kilometers could escape her divine sense. And yet, even within this range, she still could not detect the Godchild. It was as if the Godchild had silently evaporated from this world. Just what happened? A look of rage and savageness appeared on Qixing's face. Xiya thought for a moment before saying in a low voice, "Xing, calm down. You should know that the Godchild has true God-level power, and the wisdom of countless people combined. Didn't she escape without you noticing before? This time, she definitely used some unknown method to escape again, but she definitely didn't just disappear into nothing. In order to avoid our detection, she didn't use her divine power, so even if she escaped, she can't have gone very far. In fact, she might be hiding nearby. For example, she might be using some sort of true God-level concealment ability." "You're right." Qixing slowly nodded. "Neither of us detected anything, so she can't have gone far. I'll go east and you go west. If you detect her, let me know immediately." After speaking, Qixing's body flashed and vanished. Xiya slightly nodded and also disappeared. "I feel like I just listened to a legend, the era of gods. So gods weren't something that humans made up, and they actually existed in the past. Xiya is the Godchild, and she saved countless people who suffered from his rock disease. Xiya, who was with us for such a long time, actually had such a terrifying history, and no wonder the mad scientist had monstrous abilities and technology that was so much more advanced than Earth's technology." They continuously marveled at what she had heard. Even though she had incredible mental fortitude, it took her a long time to slowly process and accept everything that Ling Chen had told her. "It is the age of humans right now, and even though gods existed in the past, they shouldn't appear again. Now, they only exist in legends and stories. Even if some people are the reincarnations of true gods, they can only awaken a part of that strength, but their thoughts and personalities are still human, just like the mystic moon world's moon goddesses. As time passes, each reincarnation will become weaker and weaker until their godhood completely disappears. However, there was an anomaly, which is Qixing." Ling Chen raised his head and said with a sigh, "I don't know what went wrong, but after being reincarnated, having 50% godhood is already incredible, yet the godly soul that Qixing awakened had 80% godhood, and she gained some of the godly soul's memories. As such, Qixing's thoughts were more god than human. This caused her to be unsatisfied with not being able to control the worlds that the gods created, and it made her want to make true gods descend again, controlling these worlds, which belong to gods. As such, she started the god-creating plan. The Pegasi star and Galwa star were destroyed, and billions of innocent humans died. The Xiya star also suffered a disaster, and Earth was also indirectly destroyed as a result. From all of this, Xiya was born. How many people have died, and how many tragedies have occurred? Even if Xiya completes the god-creating plan, she won't become a god, but a demon filled with sins. When the time comes, who knows what the universe will be like in her hands? It's simply unimaginable," Bei said with a melancholy tone. She suddenly thought of something and said as she looked over, "Come to think of it, how did you come here after destroying Earth?" Ling Chen felt a bit surprised upon hearing this question, and after thinking back, he could only hazily shake his head. "I don't know either. I was suddenly transported from the mystic moon world to Earth through a spatial black hole, so perhaps it was another spatial black hole that brought me here." But if a spatial black hole had brought him here, was it really a coincidence? that he had been brought to the exact spot on the Xiya star where they were. But then again, how did they arrive here? Just what was going on? Faye did not say anything, and she also fell into deep contemplation. Adam, I have a question, Faye said, as she looked over with a sincere expression. Can anyone become a Shura if they fall into absolute despair and hatred? Why do you ask? Ling Chen asked, feeling quite surprised. Faye calmly replied, There are billions, if not trillions, of creatures, and just on Earth alone, there are almost 10 billion people. If you add the people who have lived in the past, the number is simply too great to be counted. While many of these people have lived in peace and happiness, many others would have lived in pain and despair. In fact, some people would have felt even more pain and despair than you. But why have Shuras never appeared in Earth's history? Why did you? It should be because of the lunar scourge. The lunar scourge was born from being affected by the Shura's baleful aura, and I only obtained the Shura's power in the mystic moon world because of it. The reason I fell into the way of the Shura should also be because of it, Ling Chen said as he raised his right wrist. You said that the first Shura was during the era of gods, and the Shura brought it to an end. A god becoming a Shura was powerful enough to destroy the world of gods. This means that after becoming a Shura, one's power increases 10, if not 100 times. Even though you can't compare to the true god Shura, as a Shura, your power should have increased dramatically as well. In that case, right now, are you able to defeat Qi Xing? Right now, you're a super monster who can even destroy Earth. Faye looked at him and said earnestly. Before, Qi Xing had displayed absolute power in front of him, making him believe that he could never defeat Qi Xing. However, now that Faye had reminded him of this, he realized that he wasn't the same. After becoming a true Shura, he had obtained incredibly terrifying strength that allowed him to destroy an entire world with a single blow. Even though this had not reached the level of true gods, it was definitely close. After he regained consciousness, he felt that the power within him had not decreased at all. In that case, with his strength now, he might be able to defeat Qi Xing. If he could defeat Qi Xing, he could take Xia and the fate-defying heavenly orb from Qiyu. Qi Xing's ambitions would be destroyed, and the tragedies from her god-creating plan would not continue. He would be able to take revenge, and they would not have to live in fear. You're right. You're absolutely right. In my current state, I might be able to defeat Qi Xing. Ling Chen stood up, his expression becoming resolute as he said, Chong had 40% godhood and Rahu had 50% godhood, but I was still able to instantly kill them. In that case, my godhood must completely exceed theirs, and it should be at least 70%. Qi Xing has 80% godhood, so even if I have 70% godhood, with the lunar scourge, it's possible I'll be able to defeat her. Seeing how Ling Chen looked, Faye knew what sort of decision he had made. She slightly regretted reminding him of this, but deep down, she knew that he still would have made this decision for Xia and the fate-defying heavenly orb whether she reminded him or not. However, could he really defeat the monstrous Qi Xing? If he lost, the result would be, Are you able to find where Qi Xing is? Her position isn't something we can use Earth's measurements to determine, and with how big the universe is, we might never be able to find or see her, Faye said slowly. Ling Chen raised his eyebrows as if he suddenly thought of something, and he said in a low voice, I might be able to find her. After I became a true Shura, my mental energy rapidly grew, and Qi Xing is the only person with 80% godhood, so her aura should be far more powerful than any other being's. If I concentrate, I should be able to find her rough location. As he spoke, Ling Chen closed his eyes, and by the time he finished speaking, he opened his eyes, looking towards south. Did you find her? Seeing his reaction, Faye asked in surprise. That's right. I really found her. Ling Chen nodded. and she's very close to the Xiya star, less than 20,000 kilometers away. 20,000 kilometers was a shocking distance to most people, but Ling Chen had said this incredibly calmly. This was because the level he was at had completely exceeded the limits of humans. 20,000 kilometers was not very far to him, and it was comparable to tens of kilometers to normal humans. You really found her. Fei stood up, feeling slightly unsettled. After finding Qixing, it was evident what Ling Chen was going to do next. Perhaps he wouldn't wait a single minute, because every minute that he waited, Xia continued to be in danger, and the fate-defying heavenly orb might be used. What are you going to do then? Fei asked. Of course I'm going to find her. Ling Chen looked south, his gaze becoming more and more determined. Right now. Even though she had expected it, hearing Ling Chen say those words, Fei's heart still trembled. That's right. Ling Chen nodded without hesitating. Since I can detect her, I'm sure she can detect me. In fact, she might have sensed me when Rahu and Chong died. When someone who thought herself undefeatable suddenly detects a person who can threaten her, and adding on a woman's cautiousness, she would feel a sense of uneasiness. Adding on Chong and Rahu's deaths, and the fact that the Burning Heavens plan can't continue, she would definitely take that person to be her archenemy. In that case, what would she do? Fei thought for a moment before understanding what he was saying. You're saying that she'll feel uneasy, and will not wait for the Godchild to fully mature, and she will immediately absorb her power? That's right. Ling Chen clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. If Qixing absorbed Xia's power, her life force might be absorbed as well. No! I can't let this sort of thing happen. I have to immediately find her. Even if I can't defeat Qixing, I'll use my life to save Xia. Fei grabbed his hand. Are you really going to go right now? Big brother, Anigu woke up. Before Fei finished her sentence, Tian ran out from the house and excitedly called out. Ling Chen and Fei turned around, and Ling Chen hesitated for a moment before rushing in. Gu Qinghan's body was still quite weak, but her face had a healthy red glow, and she was on the way to making a full recovery. Seeing Ling Chen quickly rush in and the excitement and worry in his eyes, she warmly smiled. Ling Chen, they said that you woke up, thank goodness. Facing Gu Qinghan's gentle gaze and smile, Ling Chen felt a throbbing in his chest. He remembered thrusting the lunar scourge divine spear into her body. Before that, he was not completely sure if she was his mother, but when her blood fell on his hands, his entire body and soul had intensely reacted. It was as if there was a voice howling in his ears. This is the blood of your closest kin. She's the closest to you, your biological mother. That sort of thing felt completely indescribable. Perhaps that was what it meant to have a blood connection. Standing in front of Gu Qinghan's bed, Ling Chen continuously looked away. His lips moved soundlessly for a while before saying with great difficulty, I'm sorry. Gu Qinghan smiled as she shook her head. You didn't do it on purpose, so why are you apologizing? Moreover, my life isn't in danger anymore, and even the wound has mysteriously vanished, so you don't need to blame yourself. Gu Qinghan was publicly acknowledged to be the most amazing person in southern China. Her gaze was usually incredibly sharp and majestic, and even most men in high positions did not dare to meet her gaze. However, at this moment, her gaze was gentle like the way a mother looked at her son. Under this sort of gaze, Ling Chen felt an indescribable warmth throughout his body. After saying the words I'm sorry, Ling Chen wasn't quite sure what to say. Only after a while did he ask the question that he had buried in his heart for a long time. What happened after I was born? Long Zhengyang told me that someone said that I had a fortune of great calamity, and you nearly died, so... Gu Qinghan felt quite startled, and she hadn't expected him to suddenly ask this question. She fell silent for a while before softly answering. This is the Long family's greatest secret. Even though I hate the Long family, I never thought about divulging this secret. However, since the Long family and all of Earth have disappeared, this secret doesn't matter anymore. Moreover, even though you don't want to admit it, the Long family's blood flows in your body, so you have the right to know. Li Xiaoshui, who had stayed by the bed this whole time, got up and prepared to leave. You don't need to leave, Xiaoshui. Right now, we're the only people left, so there's no need to hide anything from each other, Gu Qinghan said when she saw this. Auntie Gu. Li Xiaoshui smiled in gratitude and sat down by Gu Qinghan's side, looking at Ling Chen. Indeed, only they were left. Earth had been destroyed. That was not a joke, illusion, or dream. Gu Qinghan collected her thoughts before starting to talk about the Long family's secret. No matter how prosperous or powerful a family is, there'll always be a day when it falls. There have been many powerful families that have lasted for 100 years, and any family that could do so was already quite incredible. After all, in China's ancient times, the dynasties only lasted for a few hundred years or less. However, the Long family has lasted for almost 1,000 years and rose from anonymity to fame, going all the way up to the peak of China. It has remained at the peak for hundreds of years, and has not shown any signs of decline. This does not conform with the patterns in history, and the reason for this is unimaginable for most people. This is because there have always been 3 special guardians behind the Long family. 3 people that the family leader only finds out about after taking the mantle. I only know about their existence because of your birth, and I was nearly killed for it. No one knows the 3 people's names, only their titles: Dragon Claw, Dragon Scale, and Dragon Blood, Tilan. Just a reminder that the surname Long means dragon. So these 3 names were references to 3 people? Li Xiaoshui couldn't help but interject. She had mentioned these 3 names to Ling Chen before, and they were secrets that she had paid a great price to obtain. However, just because she knew these names didn't mean that she knew anything useful. Indeed, there are 3 people. They were the Long family's leaders' 3 most loyal guardians 1,000 years ago, and they continued to loyally protect the Long family generation after generation. 1,000 years? You're saying they've lived for at least 1,000 years? Li Xiaoshui's face was covered with shock and disbelief. She started to understand why Gu Qinghan had said that the reason was unimaginable by most people. It sounds ridiculous, but this is the truth. Those 3 people not only have monstrous lifespans, but they also have monstrous power. They've been guarding something called the Dragon's Vein, and as long as the Dragon's Vein is not damaged, the Long family will never decline. When the Long family faces destruction, they will appear and quell the disaster. Ling Chen, do you believe all of this? I do. Ling Chen nodded without hesitation. Lifespans of thousands of years. Dragon lifeline. To most people, these things would sound like things from a story. However, Ling Chen believed them completely, and he thought of another possibility. That those 3 people were the reincarnations of the godly souls of true gods from the era of gods, and they had awakened their godly souls. That was the only explanation for why they had such long lifespans and incredible power to preserve the Long family for such a long time. After you were born, the 3 of them suddenly appeared. That was how I knew that they existed. They said that you had a fortune of great calamity, and when you were born, the Long family's Dragon's Vein trembled. They claimed that you had to be disposed of, or you would affect the Long family's fortune, and may even cause the Dragon's Vein to crack and the Long family to decline. Those 3 people had utmost authority, and even though you were his own son, Long Zhengyang did not dare to disobey. He was unwilling to dispose of you or to give you away, so under his insistence, the 3 people gave in. You were allowed to remain in the Long family, but you were not allowed to have the Long surname, and no one was allowed to go near you. Moreover, You were not allowed to study or learn martial arts. Only that way could they reduce the impact of the fortune of great calamity on the Long family. As for me, they told me that there was deathly aura remaining within me, and that if I stayed too close to you, the chances of the deathly aura growing would increase, endangering my life. They said that I had to leave you for at least 10 years, until the deathly aura was completely gone. Ling Chen. South what Gu Qinghan said was exactly what Long Zhengyang had said to him. But, fortune of great calamity, those three guardians had said he had a fortune of great calamity, as had Daoist Tianqing in the mystic moon world, and he had experienced and caused great calamities in his life. He had massacred countless beings and even destroyed Earth. Indeed, this is completely true. On Earth, there's no one with a worse fortune than my fortune of great calamity. Ling Chen thought self-mockingly. At that time, I didn't believe what I considered to be nonsense, but Long Zhengyang believed it, and his father, Long Yunting, believed it even more. I was forced to leave you and return to the south. Those years, I thought about you every day, wanting to know how you were doing or what you looked like. I hoped every day that time would pass faster so that I could see you again after 10 years. I hated the Long family during those 10 long years, but after 10 years passed, what I received was. Gu Qinghan stopped speaking and remembered the nightmarish news she had received that night, causing her to choke up. Waiting for 10 years and hearing that her son had died was an incredibly heavy and cruel blow to her. Ling Chen's heart ached. He didn't ask Gu Qinghan to continue. After all, she was still recovering from a serious wound, and if she continued, she would overexert herself. He leaned over and said softly, "Rest well, Mom. I'm going out to do some things, and I'll be back soon." After saying this, he quietly walked out and softly closed the door. Only after a long time did Gu Qinghan come back to her senses. She looked at Li Xiaoshui and asked with a hazy look, "What did he just call me?" Li Xiaoshui smiled. "He just called you Mom, loud and clear." Gu Qinghan pulled up her blanket, covering her tear-stained face. She did her best not to cry out loud, and her shoulders continuously trembled. This was definitely the longest day of their lives. During this day, they had experienced shock, fear, despair, and had come incredibly close to death. As Gu Qinghan recovered, everything became peaceful, and the girls fell asleep one by one. After coaxing Tian asleep, Ling Chen gently picked her up and placed her on a bed and silently walked out. "Are you really going to go right now?" Just as he stepped outside, Fei's voice came from the side. Ling Chen turned to face Fei and saw that she was desperately trying to hide the worry and uneasiness in her eyes. He nodded and replied, "I have to go now. Every second I wait, Sha will be in more danger. I've already made a mistake that I'll never be able to make up for, and I definitely can't abandon Sha, who's completely innocent. No matter what, I have to get her back from Qixing's hands. Plus, even if I don't go out find her, she'll come to find me after she has absorbed Sha's divine power. When that time comes, the situation will be even worse." Ling Chen walked over to Fei's side and gently hugged her, smiling as he said, "But don't worry, I'm a Shura now. The last Shura destroyed the world of gods, so why wouldn't I be able to defeat Qixing? Even if I can't beat her, I should be at least able to escape. Just wait for me here. I won't allow myself to die." Fei hugged Ling Chen back and closed her eyes, saying in a low voice, "I know I can't stop you, but you have to remember what you just said. No matter what, you have to come back alive. Otherwise, if there's no Adam in this world, there'll be no Eve." Ling Chen's heart trembled and his arms around Fei tightened, saying softly in her ear, "Tell them I'll be back soon." As Fei watched, Ling Chen left without telling anyone else. Fei knew that he would not say anything to them, Even though he had confidently promised that he would at least come back alive, Ling Chen and Fei both knew that there was a very great risk. Once he left Fei's vision, Ling Chen slowly turned around, looking at where everyone was. There was a look of longing in his eyes, but the look quickly became one of determination. He took in a deep breath and shot southwards like a meteor, causing long-lasting ripples in the space through which he passed. Ling Chen calculated that he flew roughly 3,000 meters per second at his current speed, meaning he was traveling at over 10,000 kilometers per hour. That meant he was flying at almost 10 times the speed of sound. At this speed, it would only take 2 hours to reach where Qixing was. However, after flying at his maximum speed for a while, Ling Chen suddenly reduced his speed. This was because he suddenly realized that there would be an intense battle after he found Qixing. If he flew at his maximum speed for 2 hours, by the time he found Qixing, he would have used up a lot of his strength already. As such, he reduced his speed. Despite this, he was still traveling incredibly quickly. After going 100 kilometers, Ling Chen suddenly saw a massive ring of light ahead of him, accompanied by a strange aura. Ling Chen raised his eyebrows and stopped in front of the ring of light. When he first saw the ring of light, Ling Chen was still very far away. Now that he was right above it, he realized how big this ring of light was. It was a hemisphere on the ground, and it was a massive 20 or 30 kilometers in diameter, giving off a gray-white light that was uncomfortable to look at. Ling Chen could immediately tell that the ring of light was a barrier. From its color, it definitely wasn't a defensive or buff barrier. Rather, it gave off an uncomfortable aura, meaning that it was likely a vampiric or soul-stealing barrier. Seeing how big this barrier was, Ling Chen was certain that even the 3 moon goddesses working together wouldn't be able to create such a thing. Within Ling Chen's knowledge, the only people who could create such a thing were Chong, Rahu, and Qixing. Ling Chen's gaze continuously flickered and thought of a possibility. He did not continue onwards, and he instead descended until he was right above the barrier. Immediately, a dark and gloomy attractive force came from beneath his feet. When the attractive force touched the Shura's power, it shrank back as if it had come into contact with steel needles, and the entire barrier slightly trembled. "Ha ha!" Ling Chen coldly laughed. "Just as I expected. The mad scientist chose to use gaming equipment to take human souls from the Mystic Moon planet, while Chong used this massive soul-collecting barrier to carry out the Burning Heavens plan on the Xiya star. After making the Xiya people submit, he brought them into this barrier and used the barrier's power to forcefully collect their souls. However, the barrier is too big, meaning its strength is reduced. The Xiya people's strength exceeds those of the Mystic Moon planet, so there must be people who have strong determination and can resist for a long time. No wonder Chong's Burning Heavens plan still has not been completed, which means there are still people inside this barrier. Those whose souls haven't been collected yet must still be within the barrier. If I destroy this barrier and their bodies haven't died, their souls can still return. But if their bodies have died, there'll be nothing I can do." After making a decision, Ling Chen raised his right hand, and the lunar scourge divine spear appeared within it before he thrusted the spear downwards at the massive gray-white barrier. Break! With a ding, the lunar scourge divine spear shallowly stabbed into the barrier. Only half of the spearhead sank into it, and if that was all, the 20 or 30 kilometer wide barrier would not have been harmed at all. However, this was a strike from a Shura. Through that gap, the Shura's power instantly filled the entire barrier. Crack! The barrier became densely covered with cracks, and the dim light instantly became incredibly bright. Following this, the shattered pieces of the barrier started to melt like ice under hot temperature, and they quickly disappeared. As the final bit of gray-white light disappeared, the barrier was finally gone, and cheers sounded out from below. As the barrier disappeared, Ling Chen saw the people who had been covered by it. There were countless people densely gathered within it. Most people were lying there without any traces of life within them, as if they had been dead for a while. But there were also some people sitting or even standing. They looked incredibly weary, and their clothes were tattered, but they were at least still alive, and their souls had not been collected. When these people looked up and saw him, looks of shock and disbelief flashed in their eyes. "You're free now. Look after the people around you. Many of them should be able to be revived," Ling Chen said from above. Even though he wasn't speaking very loudly, his words could be clearly heard by everyone. Below, someone moved, and a middle-aged man, who was in a sorry state but still gave off an extraordinary aura, shouted, "Did you save us? We'll never forget your great generosity." A look of pleading appeared on his face as he stood respectfully. "Benefactor, since you've destroyed the soul-devouring domain, there will be incredibly powerful people coming soon. Can we make a request of you? Even though it's incredibly rude of us, but if those evil people are not dealt with, the Xiya star will never have peace. If you can help us, we'll... Do you mean Chong and Rahu?" Ling Chen directly asked because he knew about Chong and Rahu. "Don't worry, they're already dead. Perhaps it's a bit late, but the Xiya star's crisis is over. All you need to do is rebuild the Xiya star and salvage what you can." "Ah, Chong's dead?" He said Chong was dead, and even Rahu, who was even more terrifying than Chong. "Really? Is that really true? He's an expert from another world who's able to destroy even this terrifying domain. Why would he lie to us? To be able to destroy this domain, that means that he's even more powerful than Chong and Rahu. It must be true. It must be true." The survivors all started cheering, and they all felt immense gratitude for this person. All of them wept tears as they raised their arms. However, when they saw the people who had not gotten up and would never get up, they felt a sense of sorrow, and they did not know whether to celebrate or to mourn. "Thank you. Thank you." The middle-aged man emotionally kneeled down. Seeing him kneel, all of the Xiya people kneeled down, looking at Ling Chen with immense gratitude in his eyes. Ling Chen slightly nodded and prepared to leave when he suddenly thought of something and asked, "May I ask, is the Queen of Xiya here?" "Eh? The Queen?" As Ling Chen asked this, everyone turned to look at a person. A woman was being slowly helped up. Her face was completely pale, and her mind was in a weakened state, but that could not cover her regal and majestic bearing. "I am the current Queen of the Xiya star. Thank you for saving us." Seeing the Queen of Xiya's features and aura, Ling Chen could imagine just how beautiful Tian would be after she grew up. He smiled as he said, "It's a pleasure to meet you, Queen of Xiya. You're Tian's mother, right?" Hearing the name Tian, the Queen of Xiya's eyes trembled, her regal bearing completely gone as she stumbled forwards. "You?" "Yes, I'm her mother." "Have you seen her? Where is she? Has she been well?" It was evident how much the Queen of Xiya loved Tian. Ling Chen slightly smiled as he said, "I'm Tian's friend from Earth. She has lived on Earth for a year, and she has been living with us. She's been quite well, so you don't have to worry. She has returned to the Xiya star, and she is about 100 kilometers north from here. If you head that way, you'll be able to find her." "Oh, really?" The Queen of Xiya's body trembled. After hearing that her daughter, who she had worried about for the past year, was fine and safe and had returned to the Xiya star, she became joyful to the point of tears. Indeed, if she had been with this powerful man while on Earth, it would be difficult for her to even be in danger. "Thank you. You saved my people and even looked after my daughter. I don't know how I can repay you. Can you tell us your name?" The Queen of Xiya said to Ling Chen. "I'm called Ling Chen. If you're going to find her, make sure you be as quiet as possible. She's had a tiring day, and she is resting right now. Perhaps you can give her a surprise after she wakes up." After speaking, Ling Chen nodded and turned into a ray of light, disappearing from their sight. Ling Chen's casual sentence contained his care and love for Tian, increasing the Queen of Xiya's gratefulness towards him. Looking towards where Ling Chen had left, she muttered, "He's not only powerful but also gentle. Could he be a true god sent to save us by the heavens?" This was definitely the longest day of their lives. During this day, they had experienced shock, fear, despair, and had come incredibly close to death. As Gu Qinghan recovered, everything became peaceful, and the girls fell asleep one by one. After coaxing Tian asleep, Ling Chen gently picked her up and placed her on a bed and silently walked out. "Are you really going to go right now?" Just as he stepped outside, Fei's voice came from the side. Ling Chen turned to face Fei and saw that she was desperately trying to hide the worry and uneasiness in her eyes. He nodded and replied, "I have to go now. Every second I wait, Sha will be in more danger. I've already made a mistake that I'll never be able to make up for, and I definitely can't abandon Sha, who's completely innocent. No matter what, I have to get her back from Qixing's hands. Plus, even if I don't go out find her, she'll come to find me after she has absorbed Sha's divine power. When that time comes, the situation will be even worse." Ling Chen walked over to Fei's side and gently hugged her, smiling as he said, "But don't worry, I'm a Shura now. The last Shura destroyed the world of gods, so why wouldn't I be able to defeat Qixing? Even if I can't beat her, I should be at least able to escape. Just wait for me here. I won't allow myself to die." Fei hugged Ling Chen back and closed her eyes, saying in a low voice, "I know I can't stop you, but you have to remember what you just said. No matter what, you have to come back alive. Otherwise, if there's no Adam in this world, there'll be no Eve." Ling Chen's heart trembled and his arms around Fei tightened, saying softly in her ear, "Tell them I'll be back soon." As Fei watched, Ling Chen left without telling anyone else. Fei knew that he would not say anything to them, even though he had confidently promised that he would at least come back alive. Ling Chen and Fei both knew that there was a very great risk. Once he left Fei's vision, Ling Chen slowly turned around, looking at where everyone was. There was a look of longing in his eyes, but the look quickly became one of determination. He took in a deep breath and shot southwards like a meteor, causing long-lasting ripples in the space through which he passed. Ling Chen calculated that he flew roughly 3,000 meters per second at his current speed, meaning he was traveling at over 10,000 kilometers per hour. That meant he was flying at almost 10 times the speed of sound. At this speed, it would only take 2 hours to reach where Qixing was. However, after flying at his maximum speed for a while, Ling Chen suddenly reduced his speed. This was because he suddenly realized that there would be an intense battle after he found Qixing. If he flew at his maximum speed for 2 hours, by the time he found Qixing, he would have used up a lot of his strength already. As such, he reduced his speed. Despite this, he was still traveling incredibly quickly. Chapter 827 Quasi-God Weapon Falling Star. As Ling Chen quickly advanced, he could feel himself drawing closer and closer to Qixing. He had been able to easily find Qixing because Qixing was the only one with power that was at a similar level to his, and her aura was even greater than his, so he could naturally sense her easily. Of course, only those who were near Qixing's level had the right to detect her aura. Half an hour later, Ling Chen completely left the Xiya star and entered the vast space. It was impossible for normal beings to survive in space, but Ling Chen was evidently an exception to this now. He now had vigorous life force and an incredibly durable body from the Shura's power, making it so that he no longer had to breathe to live. Moreover, the temperature and cosmic particles could not affect him at all. Even the gravitational pulls from other bodies could not affect, let alone restrict, his movements. Traveling through space was something that Ling Chen had never even thought about before, yet he was doing it right now. The scene before his eyes was so incredibly mysterious and grand that it rendered him speechless. However, he quickly collected his thoughts and found a chaotic flow in space. As he entered, he traveled nearly 10 times as fast, and he did not have to protect himself from any damage, nor did he have to use any of his strength. As time passed, Ling Chen drew closer and closer to where Qixing was. Ling Chen became calmer and calmer, his gaze becoming sharp. During this time, Qixing's aura had not changed, meaning that she had not absorbed the Godchild's power. To Ling Chen, this was the best-case scenario. I will definitely take Xiya back. If Ling Chen could detect Qixing's position, she could naturally sense Ling Chen. After discovering that the Godchild had disappeared from right in front of her, she had searched the space around her, but found nothing. Just as she was about to lose her patience and destroy everything around her, she felt an aura that was no weaker than hers quickly speeding towards her. Qixing looked over, her expression darkening. She looked north for a while, feeling that aura draw nearer as she coldly laughed, muttering condescendingly, "I didn't even go to find you, yet you're taking the initiative to rush me. What a joke. Do you really think that you have the right to challenge me just because you have 80% godhood as well? That's good as well. Since you want to die, I won't have to worry about you wasting my time in the future. Even if the Godchild has really escaped, after getting rid of you, I'll be able to create another Godchild. No one will be able to stop me." Qixing stopped looking for the Godchild and turned into a ray of light as she flew towards Ling Chen. After exiting from the chaotic flow, Ling Chen detected Qixing's aura rapidly approaching him. After feeling slightly startled, his eyebrows tightened as he coldly harumphed, speeding forwards. 10 minutes later, the two of them were less than 1,000 meters away from each other. Qixing and Ling Chen simultaneously stopped, looking at each other from 1,000 meters away. "It's you? How can it be you?" Qixing was already quite surprised towards this person, who had suddenly appeared with 80% godhood, and she wanted to know how such a person had suddenly come into existence. After seeing Ling Chen, there was a look of deep shock on her face, because she had seen Ling Chen only half a day ago, and even putting aside how he had arrived here from the Mystic Moon world, back then, he had not been able to take a single blow from her. Even with the Lunar Scourge Divine Spear, and Lunar Scourge Divine Armor, he could only release the power of 30% godhood. Only 12 hours had passed, so how could? Was it someone who just looked like him? However, after seeing the Lunar Scourge Divine Armor on Ling Chen's body, Qixing immediately cast that thought away, and her gaze darkened as she looked at Ling Chen, wanting to know just what had happened. Every 10% increase in godhood was a completely different realm. Even though there was only a 10% difference in godhood between Chong and Rahu, Chong could be easily defeated by Rahu. Raising one's godhood in this godless age was incredibly difficult. No, it was essentially impossible. This was because everyone with godhood had awakened it naturally, and it was not something that could be developed or cultivated, becoming weaker from generation to generation. The Godchild plan was the only way she knew how to raise one's godhood. This method required much time and effort, and it was incredibly cruel and heaven-defying. And yet, the person in front of her had increased his godhood to 80% in 12 hours. How was Qixing supposed to accept this? Why can't it be me?" Ling Chen coldly laughed, summoning the Lunar Scourge Divine Spear, and discourteously pointed it towards Qixing. "Qixing, you should know why I've come to find you. Return Xiya and the fate-defying heavenly orb that you took." After speaking, his arm trembled as the Lunar Scourge Divine Spear gave a resonant whistle, a berserk aura, and a chilling killing intent enveloping the space in front of him, and his eyes shined with a blood-red glow. Even the unrivaled Qixing felt a chill through her body upon sensing the Shura's aura. She had never felt such a violent aura or such cold killing intent before, and when she saw Ling Chen's blood-red eyes, her expression flickered as she cried out, "Eyes of extermination! Could you be a Shura?" "That's right, I've become a true Shura," Ling Chen said as he narrowed his eyes, speaking in a cold and calm tone. "I was forced into becoming a Shura by you and Xiya." Qixing's gaze started to change. The gods had been destroyed by the first Shura, and the owner of Qixing's godly soul had also died under the Shura's spear. As such, when facing the Shura, who had the eyes of extermination, her soul started to tremble. However, she was not a god, and the effect on her was quite weak. This sort of trembling lasted only for a short while before she said slowly, "So that's the case. No wonder why your power suddenly exploded to such a level. What shocks me is that you still have your consciousness. No one said that a Shura had to forever lose its consciousness," Ling Chen coldly replied. "I lost my consciousness and committed grave sins, but in order to punish you for your crimes, I had to climb out from that abyss." "Punish me for my crimes? Ha ha!" Qixing disdainfully laughed. There were too many people who had died because of her, but no one had dared to stand in front of her and say that they were going to punish her for her crimes. "From the looks of it, you don't know where the Godchild went either. When I first saw you, I wondered if you did something to take the Godchild away from me, but it seems that I overestimated you." "What do you mean? What happened to Xiya?" Ling Chen frowned. "That's not important." A calm, cold smile appeared on Qixing's beautiful face as she brought down her crossed arms. "Because this doesn't matter to you and me right now. To me, I can always find her if I spend the time to look, and even if I can't find her, I can just create another one. It'll just take some time and effort. As for you, regardless of where she is, you won't be able to see her again. Right now, you're able to slightly threaten me, but now that you've shown up voluntarily, I'll grant you a complete death." As Qixing spoke, a blinding light flashed in her right hand, condensing into a 6-pointed star that was about half as long as her body and gave off a dark light. "This star is called the Falling Star, and it is a Quasi-God weapon that can destroy everything in the world. Even though it can't compare to the Lunar Scourge Divine Spear in terms of strength, it has been with me for over 1,000 years and has almost become a part of my body, while the Lunar Scourge Divine Spear has only been with you for a year. In terms of quality, my weapon is inferior to yours, but in terms of compatibility, you're far inferior to me. However, even if I'm at a disadvantage, I don't think I'll lose." Raising the falling star, Qixing casually smiled. This was not a forced smile, and it was one that came from her absolute confidence. Even though their godhood was on the same level and her weapon was inferior to his, she did not feel that she was any weaker. "It's been a few hundred years since my darling falling star drank blood. You should feel honored." Ling Chen did not say anything. He had to kill Qixing, or the consequences would be unimaginable. Today, either he or Qixing would die. Since that was the case, there was no need to waste words with each other. Ling Chen's breathing was calm, and his mental state quickly went into its calmest state as his power rose to its peak. Swish! As an extremely soft sound sounded out, Ling Chen's body disappeared and reappeared 1,000 meters away, the Lunar Scourge Divine Spear sweeping towards Qixing with immense force. Clang! The Lunar Scourge Divine Spear and Falling Star collided, the resulting shockwave causing the nearby asteroids to deviate from their courses. An explosion of silver light also burst forth, looking like a silver sun. However, despite this almighty impact, neither person retreated, and their gazes clashed. "Looks like you really have 80% godhood. You're actually the first person Who hasn't been blasted away by my falling star? Qixing said calmly. I'm going to be the person to reduce you, you female demon, into nothing. Ling Chen roared in a low voice as he spawned the Lunar Scourge Divine Spear, once again landing a berserk strike. Egotistical and ridiculous. Qixing beautifully spun, bringing the falling star to clash with the Lunar Scourge Divine Spear again and again. In just a few moments, they had clashed nearly 1,000 times, the blinding light repeatedly flashing about them. Xiya's star. It was nearing dawn, and it was the quietest time of the day. However, Fei still did not sleep. After Ling Chen left, she continued to lean against the large rock, not feeling sleepy at all. At this moment, she suddenly saw a large silver flash of light to the south. She instantly became fully alert, staring south because a round silver sun had appeared. There were many smaller silver lights flashing around the silver sun, and this light was not only blinding, but it also gave her a sense of suffocation. Could it be? Fei's eyes were glued to the south, unable to look away. Adam, you have to come back alive. Boom, 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 boom. The universe, which had been peaceful for countless years, suffered great destruction from the clashes between the Lunar Scourge Divine Spear and Falling Star. Only after fighting with Qixing did Ling Chen know what sort of level his strength had reached. In his memories, he had destroyed Earth with a single strike, making him feel incredibly shocked. Only after completely unleashing his strength did he realize that destroying a planet was not so difficult or amazing. Countless worlds were created by gods, so since they could create them, destroying them was incredibly easy as well. Even though Ling Chen and Qixing were not true gods, they were quasi-gods who were quite close, so destroying planets was incredibly easy to them. After clashing tens of thousands of times, a terrifying spatial storm had been created around them. Black holes filled their surroundings, and 10 or so nearby planets were forced off their orbits. The asteroids that came nearby were instantly destroyed. Shattered moon! An unbelievable destructive force gathered at the spearhead of the Lunar Scourge Divine Spear, releasing a blinding silver crescent moon. The current shattered moon that he released and the shattered moons he had unleashed in the mystic moon world were on completely different levels. The moons created from the energy were about the same size, but the power it contained was thousands of times more intense. The instant that the moon of energy formed, an intense light covered the entire spear and Ling Chen's body, and then as the space around it rippled, it shot towards Qixing's falling star and exploded. Under the indescribable energy, falling star shape started to twist, and Qixing gave a low grunt as she flew backwards like a meteor. She flew backwards 10,000 meters, and Ling Chen only gave her an instant before instantly closing those 10,000 meters. Suddenly, a gray light flashed in his eyes, as an extremely dangerous and sharp aura shot out towards him. Ling Chen abruptly twisted his body, and falling star narrowly spun by his face before making a large arc and flying back towards him. The falling star could be used as a shield, and it could also be used for close combat and long-range attacks. Even though it was much harder to use than normal weapons, once it was mastered, it was the perfect combination of short and long-range offense and defense. Ling Chen's body blurred as he moved, continuously dodging the falling star, which shot at him from different directions. After moving 30 or so times, the falling star continued to chase after him, as if it would not stop until it had reduced him to pieces. When the falling star once again spun towards him from behind, Ling Chen no longer dodged. Instead, he coldly laughed as he stabbed the Lunar Scourge Divine Spear towards the falling star without turning. The current falling star was like an incredibly sharp gear spinning at an incredible speed. Once it hit something, no matter if it was a body, weapon, or even a world, it would split whatever came its way into two. However, Ling Chen was holding the Lunar Scourge Divine Spear, a godly item, and he did not believe that it would be cut by the falling star. Scree, an extremely ear-piercing grinding sound rang out as the Lunar Scourge Divine Spear and falling star collided, but this only lasted for a moment before the falling star's spinning was forcibly stopped. The massive impact almost caused Ling Chen to drop the Lunar Scourge Divine Spear, and his gaze became serious as he flicked the spear, sending the falling star flying behind him as he rushed towards Qixing. However, when he was about to reach Qixing, Ling Chen watched as Qixing opened her hand, the falling star returning to her as it met the Lunar Scourge Divine Spear. Boom! An explosion of energy once again sounded out, but this time it was much larger than before. 3 nearby stars were instantly annihilated, turning into dust and vanishing, while the 2 of them were each blasted thousands of meters away. Neither of them attacked again, and they instead stared at the other person before making the same action, reaching over and wiping away the blood from their mouths. Even though they were both invincible quasi-gods, after clashing tens of thousands of times, their blood tossed and turned and their chests heaved. "Looks like I've underestimated you. Looks like you're barely able to keep up with me," Qixing said lazily. However, deep down, she felt quite shocked. Even though they both had 80% godhood, her godly soul had awakened for over 1,000 years, and she had fully made this power hers. While Ling Chen had his power for less than a day, yet he was able to make full use of it. This was completely abnormal. She remembered how difficult it was for her to control her power when her godly soul first awakened, and it took her at least 2 to 3 years to start controlling it. And yet, this person in front of her looked like he was wielding his power easily. "It's a pity that you're still going to die. No one I've wanted to kill has lived to see another day." Qixing beautifully and insidiously smiled. "Just with your abilities?" Ling Chen coldly laughed. "You'll soon know who's going to die here today." Even though Qixing said that Ling Chen was barely able to keep up with her, she still looked quite calm and unruffled, and it was as if she could see victory. As for Ling Chen, his voice was filled with complete confidence. In their clashes just then, no one was able to take the upper hand, but both of them were certain that they would be able to destroy the other person. At this moment, Ling Chen raised his right wrist, and a silver light shot out. "Waxing moon!" As Ling Chen roared, a slightly incomplete silver moon appeared in the air, illuminating its surroundings with a bright moonlight. The instant waxing moon appeared, the lunar scourge once again shined with light as Ling Chen roared, "Eternal moon shadow!" In that instant, waxing moon became incredibly bright, covering Qixing in the distance, causing her expression to slightly change. Before at the mystic moon planet, because of the large difference between his strength and Qixing's strength, the eternal moon shadow that the lunar scourge released could only slightly restrict her. However, now that he was at the same level as Qixing, even if it could not freeze her, it could greatly restrict her movements. Just as he had expected, the instant that eternal moon shadow covered Qixing, her movements and expression froze, revealing that she had been greatly affected. This was indeed the case. Qixing's body felt incredibly heavy from being bound by that irresistible power, and she vigorously struggled to move the falling star even a few centimeters, making her feel incredibly shocked. This was the lunar scourge's power? It was as terrifying as the legend said. Being restricted to such a degree in front of someone who was at the same level as her, it was like she was a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. As expected from the Shura's monstrous item, Ling Chen did not waste any time as he shot towards Qixing. Even though it did not fully take effect on Qixing, it was at least 30% effective, making her seem as if she was completely bound in front of him, unable to retaliate at all. Waxing moon could last for 40 minutes, meaning that eternal moon shadow could last for 40 minutes. This amount of time was enough for him to destroy Qixing. However, just as he came close, he saw a faint gray light shine in Qixing's eyes. Ping! An ear-piercing sound that sounded like the sound of glass shattering rang out. Ling Chen stopped, looking behind him, as the waxing moon he had just summoned shattered and slowly dissipated. Ling Chen. As the waxing moon disappeared, so did eternal moon shadow's effects. Qixing calmly swung falling star around as she said mockingly, "That was what made you so arrogant. What a joke. I admit that the lunar scourge is quite powerful because it was an item of the Shura, and if you were able to release its full power, you would have been able to easily defeat me. However, it's a pity that its full power can only be released with real moonlight, and we're incredibly far away from the moon, so it's impossible for you to allow the lunar scourge to come into contact with moonlight. As for the moon created by the lunar scourge, ha ha ha, that's a complete joke. Crushing planets is incredibly easy, so destroying such a tiny moon made of only energy takes a single thought. Did you take it out for me to laugh at it?" Seeing the waxing moon's moonlight disappear, Ling Chen looked back at Qixing, his expression not changing at all. He then gave a trace of a cold smile. "You really think I can't kill you without the lunar scourge's power?" "Oh." Qixing slightly narrowed her eyes as she replied condescendingly, "I've awakened my 80% godhood for 1,000 years, and I know the limits of 80% godhood, which is exactly where I'm at right now. In other words, even though we both have 80% godhood, it's impossible for you to surpass me." "Is that so? Is that why you've been so confident this whole time?" Ling Chen laughed as he said slowly, "Before I appeared, you were the only person with 80% godhood, and finding someone who could fight with you is impossible. This made you think that you were invincible, and because of this, you looked down on everyone. Indeed, even though we both have 80% godhood, my godhood might be inferior to yours, but that does not mean my battle strength is any weaker than yours. Rather," Ling Chen's eyes became icy cold, as his eyes of extermination became filled with an even denser red light. At the same time, the killing intent around Ling Chen rapidly grew, sweeping towards Qixing. At this moment, Qixing, who had looked calm and confident, suddenly started to feel panic. This is impossible. The strength you had just then was definitely the limit of 80% godhood. How can it keep growing?" Feeling Ling Chen's aura rapidly growing, Qixing cried out in disbelief. "To you, that might have been the limit. However, just then, I was only using about 70% of my full strength." When Ling Chen released the Shura's power without reservations, the space around him twisted and turned, and his voice became sinister and hoarse. "Your godly soul gave you many abilities, and destructive power is only one of them, but I am a Shura. The Shura's power is gathered completely into destructive power, and none of it is wasted on other abilities. I may be inferior to you in other areas, but in terms of battle power, no one can defeat a Shura within the same realm." Boom, 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 boom. The universe, which had been peaceful for countless years, suffered great destruction from the clashes between the lunar scourge divine spear and falling star. Only after fighting with Qixing did Ling Chen know what sort of level his strength had reached. In his memories, he had destroyed Earth with a single strike, making him feel incredibly shocked. Only after completely unleashing his strength did he realize that destroying a planet was not so difficult or amazing. Countless worlds were created by gods, so since they could create them, destroying them was incredibly easy as well. Even though Ling Chen and Qixing were not true gods, they were quasi-gods who were quite close, so destroying planets was incredibly easy to them. After clashing tens of thousands of times, a terrifying spatial storm had been created around them. Black holes filled their surroundings, and 10 or so nearby planets were forced off their orbits. The asteroids that came nearby were instantly destroyed. Shattered moon! An unbelievable destructive force gathered at the spearhead of the lunar scourge divine spear, releasing a blinding silver crescent moon. The current shattered moon that he released and the shattered moons he had unleashed in the mystic moon world were on completely different levels. The moons created from the energy were about the same size, but the power it contained was thousands of times more intense. The instant that the moon of energy formed, an intense light covered the entire spear and Ling Chen's body, and then as the space around it rippled, it shot towards Qi Xing's falling star and exploded. Under the indescribable energy, falling star shape started to twist, and Qi Xing gave a low grunt as she flew backwards like a meteor. She flew backwards 10,000 meters, and Ling Chen only gave her an instant before instantly closing those 10,000 meters. Suddenly, a gray light flashed in his eyes, as an extremely dangerous and sharp aura shot out towards him. Ling Chen abruptly twisted his body, and falling star narrowly spun by his face before making a large arc and flying back towards him. The falling star could be used as a shield, and it could also be used for close combat and long-range attacks. Even though it was much harder to use than normal weapons, once it was mastered, it was the perfect combination of short and long-range offense and defense. Ling Chen's body blurred as he moved, continuously dodging the falling star, which shot at him from different directions. After moving 30 or so times, the falling star continued to chase after him, as if it would not stop until it had reduced him to pieces. When the falling star once again spun towards him from behind, Ling Chen no longer dodged. Instead, he coldly laughed as he stabbed the lunar scourge divine spear towards the falling star without turning. The current falling star was like an incredibly sharp gear spinning at an incredible speed. Once it hit something, no matter if it was a body, weapon, or even a world, it would split whatever came its way into two. However, Ling Chen was holding the lunar scourge divine spear, a godly item, and he did not believe that it would be cut by the falling star. Scree, an extremely ear-piercing grinding sound rang out as the lunar scourge divine spear and falling star collided, but this only lasted for a moment before the falling star's spinning was forcibly stopped. The massive impact almost caused Ling Chen to drop the lunar scourge divine spear, and his gaze became serious as he flicked the spear, sending the falling star flying behind him as he rushed towards Qi Xing. However, when he was about to reach Qi Xing, Ling Chen watched as Qi Xing opened her hand, the falling star returning to her as it met the lunar scourge divine spear. Boom! An explosion of energy once again sounded out, but this time it was much larger than before. 3 nearby stars were instantly annihilated, turning into dust and vanishing, while the 2 of them were each blasted thousands of meters away. Prepare to die! Ling Chen completely released the Shura's power, the black fog around his body madly swirling around as he gave off a baleful aura. As he roared, Ling Chen rushed towards Qi Xing, his body filled with berserk power, looking like a berserk demon god. Qi Xing's expression became quite unsettled, and facing Ling Chen's sudden attack, she frowned and cried out, "I don't believe that a quasi-god like me, who has awakened her 80% godhood for 1,000, will lose to a tiny Shura that has only just awakened his 80% godhood. Nirvana wheel!" The falling star madly spun, meeting Ling Chen's lunar scourge divine spear. Qi Xing directly met Ling Chen's attack, wanting to prove that she would not lose to him in pure battle strength. The lunar scourge divine spear and falling star once again clashed, creating an explosion of silver light. In that instant, Qi Xing felt as if a massive, 10,000-kilogram heavy hammer had slammed onto the falling star, causing her to be blasted backwards. Her arms became numb and almost completely lost feeling, causing her to almost lose her grip on the falling star. How is this possible? How can you be so much stronger than me? How is this possible? Just then, Qi Xing had used her full strength unreservedly in using the falling star, but she had been reduced to a sorry state by Ling Chen in just a single attack. She flew tens of thousands of meters away, her arms still feeling incredibly numb. Qixing gritted her teeth and looked at Ling Chen, who was chasing after her, an expression of fury and savageness appearing on her face. She raised the falling star with both hands and threw it out. As it shot out, it released tens of thousands of gray lights, shooting towards Ling Chen like a meteor shower. Facing this sea of lights, each of which could destroy an entire world, Ling Chen's gaze became serious as he quickly brandished the Lunar Scourge Divine Spear, creating a blinding curtain of light. As the gray lights from the falling star hit the curtain of light from the Lunar Scourge Divine Spear, they soundlessly disappeared. If it was the Ling Chen from before, even though this sort of attack from Qixing would not be able to injure him, it was enough to make him pause or show an opening. However, now that he had completely released the Shura's power, his battle power was far above Qixing's. He was able to perfectly dispel Qixing's attack, not slowing down in the slightest, and in the incredibly short instant that Qixing could not attack again, he arrived in front of her and thrusted the Lunar Scourge Divine Spear towards her. Boom! Space was instantly shattered, and countless spatial cracks extended around Ling Chen. Qixing coughed up a mouthful of blood as she was sent flying backwards. The falling star was sent flying from her hand, sent so far by the impact that they could no longer see it. Despite seeing Qixing beaten back by him again and again, Ling Chen did not reveal an expression of delight. His face remained just as calm and still, and he once again raised the Lunar Scourge Divine Spear. Extreme! Shura's Death Domain! Ling Chen coldly spoke those 5 words, as a blood-red glow exploded out from his body, making him look as if he was bathing in a pool of blood. His eyes became a pure blood-red color, as the Lunar Scourge Divine Spear was dyed red by the light. An incredibly monstrous power instantly locked down the space around them. Ling Chen hadn't forgotten the humiliating scene of his extreme Shura's death domain in the Mystic Moon world being easily dispelled by Qixing. The world became red to him as a berserk sense of ruthlessness rushed out from within his heart, filling his body and mind. Ling Chen stared at the injured Qixing, inwardly roaring, "Let's see you take this attack." Boom! Even the people in the Mystic Moon world, which was extremely far away, heard this explosion. However, this explosion did not attract their attention because the Mystic Moon world had fallen into complete chaos, because the otherworlders had all simultaneously disappeared. The residents of the Mystic Moon world had grown accustomed to the existence of the otherworlders, and seeing that they had suddenly disappeared, the residents tried to guess what had happened and felt quite unsettled. On the other hand, the Xiya star trembled for a long time, waking up Tian and the others. When they walked out, they saw that a blood-red sun had appeared in the night sky. This bloody sun lasted for 30 seconds before shrinking and disappearing. 13 nearby planets were destroyed by Ling Chen's attack. As the energy exploded out, Ling Chen remained where he was, not moving at all. He could sense that Qixing had been swept into the energy storm from the Extreme Shura's death domain. He was sure that the Extreme Shura's death domain would be able to leave a trauma that she would never be able to get rid of. When the berserk energy and blood-red light slowly dissipated, he looked over with a cold, devilish smile. Qixing was about 3,000 meters in front of him. Within the energy storm, she was brought closer to Ling Chen instead of being sent flying backwards. At this moment, there was a long trail of blood coming out of her mouth, and her jet-black hair was disheveled beyond description. There was nothing left on her body, her nakedness fully revealed to Ling Chen. All of her clothes and equipment had been completely destroyed without exception by Ling Chen's attack. Qixing's looks were incredible. As Qiyu's little sister, her looks were not any inferior to Qiyu's, and even her body could compare to Qiyu's. Her skin was as white as jade, and every inch of her body was flawless without any imperfections, giving off an air of temptation that no man could resist. Facing the completely naked Qixing, Ling Chen's gaze did not change at all. In front of him was indeed a peerless beauty, but she was also a demon who had committed countless sins and had caused immense pain and suffering to him. Qixing's face was incredibly pale, and her chest heaved, causing the 2 half-moons on her chest to continuously shake. She looked up with her eyes filled with rage and hatred. She had lost. She had actually lost. In the first 10,000 strikes or so, she had tested Ling Chen and had gradually increased the amount of strength she used. However, when she used her full strength, she was still unable to suppress him. This was enough to greatly shock her, but what she did not expect was that he had not been using his full strength, only 70% of it. After releasing his full strength, she felt restrained, and in just 2 attacks, she had been completely suppressed, and his 3rd attack had injured her quite heavily. This was the Shura's true power? A gray light came flying from the side. This was Qixing's falling star. After catching it, her expression changed as she looked at the falling star. On it, she could see 2 finger-length black cracks. Qixing's expression grew darker. This is the difference between a Shura and other creatures. If you had 90% godhood, I might not be able to defeat you, but since we both have 80% godhood, you'll never be a match for me, Ling Chen said coldly, as he looked at Qixing in her sorry state. Hand over Xiya and Qiyu immediately, and I'll give you an honorable death. Otherwise, I'll let you taste the Shura's cruelest methods. Ha ha! Qixing coldly laughed. I've indeed underestimated you. More precisely speaking, I've underestimated Shuras. No less than expected from the sort of being that destroyed the world of gods. I can't help but admit that I'm weaker than you and both of us have 80% godhood, but you just reminded me. I have the Godchild. A sinister smile appeared on Qixing's face. Even though the Godchild is still in her juvenile form, once I've absorbed her power, I might be able to become a true god. Even if I can't, I'll at least attain 90% godhood. When that time comes, even if you're a Shura, all that will be left for you is death. After saying this, Qixing wildly laughed before shooting backwards and disappearing from Ling Chen's vision in an instant. What wishful thinking! Ling Chen roared. I definitely won't let you harm Xiya. As Ling Chen roared, his body shot forwards explosively towards where Qixing had gone. Knowing that Xiya's safety was on the line, he flew as quickly as he could. However, he was not any faster than Qixing, and despite chasing her as fast as he could not close the gap between them. However, Qixing was unable to shake him off either, and they continuously flew through space. You can't escape, Qixing, Ling Chen roared in a low voice. Even if he had to chase her to the ends of the universe, he wouldn't allow her to escape. Humph, you can say that after you've caught up to me. Qixing flew like a meteorite eastwards, passing many asteroids. This was an unbelievable chase because it was in the boundless universe. They passed planet after planet, and 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours passed, but the chase still had not concluded, nor did they slow down at all. Qixing could not stop, and it seemed that she didn't have an opportunity to absorb the Godchild's power. This was because once she stopped, Ling Chen would immediately catch up to her and deal a fatal blow. Similarly, Ling Chen could not stop either, and this chase would only conclude when one of them ran out of strength. However, from 2 hours ago, Ling Chen had sensed that something was off. From the beginning, he and Qixing had maintained the same distance between each other. He had been unable to catch up, nor had she managed to pull away from him. It was impossible that their speeds were so similar. Rather, it was as if Qixing was controlling the distance between them, making it so that he could not catch up or allow him to give up. Even though he felt that something was wrong, he did not hesitate or slow down. This was because once he stopped, Xiya would face great danger, and the consequences would be unimaginable. Qixing continuously headed directly east and avoided all of the obstacles quickly. This caused Ling Chen to feel even more suspicious. 3 hours later, a dark planet appeared in front of them and grew bigger and bigger as they approached it. This time, Qixing did not go around it and instead continued onwards. Soon, the planet filled their vision. Could it be that she wants to go to this planet? Qixing's actions caused him to become alert. He concentrated and followed her, not allowing her to escape from his vision. The planet came closer and closer, and soon, they entered its atmosphere. At this moment, Qixing glanced behind her, looking at Ling Chen, who was still tightly chasing her, a cold smile appearing on her face. She suddenly stretched out her hand and performed an action that Ling Chen did not expect at all. Destroy! Qixing pushed her hands forwards, and after gathering energy for a while, a gray orb of energy shot towards the planet. What? Qixing's actions greatly shocked Ling Chen, and he slightly paused as his eyes widened because he knew what this meant. Even though the orb of energy was quite small, it contained incredibly dense energy, and it was enough to destroy this planet, which was 10% the size of Earth. However, he could not stop her, and he could only watch as that small but blinding orb of energy quickly shot towards the planet. Boom! As the orb of energy touched the planet, the nameless planet instantly turned into a gray-white color before exploding. The fragments were reduced to nothing by the destructive power, and countless spatial cracks appeared all around them, devouring the fragments that had not been fully destroyed. Even Qixing, who had rapidly flown for 3 hours, suddenly stopped. She turned around and looked at Ling Chen with a smile despite the fact that she had been running for her life. Behind her was a scene of a planet exploding, and this peerlessly beautiful, naked woman being in this scene looked incredibly shocking and unbelievable. Ling Chen did not immediately launch a fatal blow. Instead, he also stopped and coldly stared at her, feeling quite confused. At this moment, as the planet disappeared, a blinding light shot out from ahead, illuminating this region and causing Ling Chen to raise his arm to shield his eyes. That was. The spatial cracks quickly closed and disappeared, and the nameless planet was completely gone. Hidden behind this planet was a sphere burning with golden yellow flames, and it was bright to the point that Ling Chen could not look at it directly. At the same time, he could clearly feel the temperature rising and becoming hotter. Could that be the sun? Indeed, the only body that could release such light and heat from such a distance was the sun. Because they were so close to it, the sun in front of Ling Chen was 7 to 8 times bigger than what he saw on Earth. Before, the sun had been hidden by this planet, but after Qiyu had destroyed it, the sunlight rushed to where they were, unobstructed. From where Ling Chen was, he saw that Qixing had stopped in the middle of the sun, making her seem as if she was fusing with the sun. Under the golden sunlight, she looked as if she was shining with a golden light, making it difficult for Ling Chen to even look at her. What was she doing? Dark Sun Domain! As Ling Chen watched on in shock, Qixing's slightly smiling mouth opened and cried out. At the same time, her body shot out countless rays of light, instantly covering the entire space, forming a spherical barrier with her and Ling Chen at the center. What are you doing? Ling Chen looked at this barrier around him as he roared. Heh? Qixing coldly laughed and said in a low voice, Do you know what a life domain is? This is your life domain? Ling Chen frowned. He naturally knew what a life domain was. He had encountered quite a few life domains in the Mystic Moon world, such as the White Tiger's Thunder God barrier and Blue Heart's Rainbow Glass barrier. A life domain was a domain formed using one's life force as the source, meaning that the domain was linked to one's life. If one wanted to destroy the domain, they would have to kill the person who had created it. Unless the creator of the domain died or canceled the domain would be impossible to destroy. At the same time, Because it was created using one's life force, it cost a lot of one's life as a cost. That's right. This is my life domain. More accurately speaking, this is a domain that belongs to the Dark Sun Gods. Qixing slowly spread out her arms, tilting her head back as she closed her eyes, enjoying the feeling of being bathed in the sunlight. Her extremely beautiful body seemed even more enchanting under the light. My godly soul comes from the ancient Dark Sun God domain, and it's the godly soul of the Dark Sun God King. After the gods all died, there was only a 0.0001% chance of awakening a godly soul, and the limit for most people is 50% godhood. However, I awakened 80% godhood and a portion of my memories. That was because the Dark Sun God domain's power comes from the sun, and under the sun, their divine power becomes much more powerful. If the soul of a God King of the Dark Sun God domain is illuminated by sunlight when he or she dies, they will be protected by the light of the sun. The light of the sun is the most powerful thing in the universe, and even true gods can be incinerated by it. Its power can defy even the laws of reincarnation. When the owner of my godly soul died, they were under intense sunlight, which is why I was able to awaken 80% godhood. Ling Chen. This is the life domain of the Dark Sun Gods, and even though it cost half of my lifespan to activate, as long as I can destroy you, there'll be nothing in this world that can threaten me, so this price was worth it. This is the first and last time I'll ever use this domain. Killing a Shura within this Dark Sun domain will be revenge for the Dark Sun Gods, who fell under the Shura's spear back then. As Qixing spoke, Ling Chen already used his mind to detect the strength of this barrier. What surprised him was that he could not sense anything else apart from the light ions and the temperature increase, whether it was buffs or debuffs. He disdainfully said, "Just with this domain? What? You think it's not enough?" Qixing, who had run away for 3 hours, slowly floated near Ling Chen. As she moved, Ling Chen realized that the golden light was not her skin reflecting the sunlight, but her body releasing a mysterious golden light. Under sunlight, the power of the Dark Sun Gods greatly increases, and the Dark Sun domain can only be created under sunlight. Apart from locking the space, it can also quickly gather the power of the sun. Haven't you noticed that the light in here is becoming brighter and brighter as the temperature increases? The greater the power of the sun, the more my strength will increase. Right now, my power has increased by 50%, and in 10 minutes, it will have increased by 100%. If it continues, my strength can increase by 300%, if not 400%. As long as I don't die or cancel this domain, it won't disappear, and you'll never be able to escape from it. When I activated the Dark Sun domain, you already lost all hope of killing me. Ha ha ha. Qixing wildly laughed as the golden light shining out from her rippled, her aura continuously becoming stronger. As it became stronger, the golden light coming out from her body also became more intense. Falling Star once again appeared in her hand, turning into a golden color like her body. The damage dealt by the Lunar Scourge Divine Spear quickly closed and disappeared. Qixing coldly smiled, her arm moving and swinging the falling star, creating a vacuum around her and forming a black hole. The falling star exploded out with a golden light, which passed through the black hole and spiraled towards Ling Chen's body. Ling Chen's gaze became cold, and the Lunar Scourge Divine Spear appeared in his hand. Ling Chen's body turned into a ray of light and rushed towards the falling star. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as a white gold light burst forth between Ling Chen and Qixing's bodies. The massive energy explosion filled the entire Dark Sun domain, causing even the sunlight to become slightly dimmer. This was the most intense collision between Ling Chen and Qixing so far, and within the white gold light, the two of them retreated, expressions of shock appearing on both of their faces. Ling Chen had gone all out, and Qi Xing had also attacked without reservations, but neither of them had gained the upper hand. They were still evenly matched. With the sunlight behind her, and adding on the dark sun domain, Qi Xing's strength had increased by 50%. She had thought that it would be enough to suppress Ling Chen, but he had actually blocked her attack. As for Ling Chen, he had completely felt Qi Xing's increase in strength, and his heart sank, because Qi Xing had said that her power would grow 400% as the power of the sun gathered in the dark sun domain. Qi Xing, who is 400% stronger, even if he was a Shura, he had no chance of victory.